call the 16th annual town hall meeting to order at about 8:35 on Saturday, February 7th, 2026. And we're so glad, there we go, we're so glad everyone could be here. Good morning, I'm Mayor Chris Riley, and on behalf of your City Council and staff, I'd like to welcome everyone to the annual town hall meeting. Thank you for making the effort to come this morning after we made an executive decision to reschedule this meeting from January 24th to today due to the weather. And I think it was the right decision, don't you think? This is a beautiful day compared to the 24th. This is our 16th annual meeting since January 2011, when our community held our first town hall meeting in this same room. How time flies, I can't believe it. Today we have an agenda which not only gives you updated information, but seeks your input on agenda topics. We will also listen to citizens' concerns on issues which are not on the specific agenda. These concerns and questions can be addressed during the citizens to be heard after the last presentation on brainstorming cost-effective ways to celebrate our July 4th, this coming July 4th, at around noon. Let me take a moment to introduce and thank your City Council for their involvement and dedication to this annual planning process. Unfortunately, Councilor Daniel Bolton notified me this morning that she is ill and is not able to attend, so I'm not able to introduce her. But I'd like to introduce Mayor Pro Tem Betty Heil. Betty, you please stand and Councilor Philip Compost, Councilor Chris Andrews, Councilor Ray Bosco, good morning, thank you, and Councilor Beth Mersch. The council has worked with our citizens, our city manager, Dr. Caldera, and all the directors to establish and develop this agenda over the last several months at our council meetings. I can testify that a tremendous amount of work has gone into this annual meeting, and the staff has worked tirelessly, a true team effort. And will the city managers, the directors, the support staff, please stand up and be recognized. Thank you. Please. Our city secretary, for the food and drink supply this morning. People are going, wow, what a spread. So I said, yeah, it's a town hall meeting. So Dr. Caldera will follow me this morning in giving progress from the 2025 town hall meeting and highlights from her and her staff's annual report from 2025, which she started providing several years ago when she became city manager. This report is online, and there are some copies that as you come in. And Dr. Caldera will also show us, I hope everybody has a cell phone, and if you don't, then see Sandra Postler, and she'll help you get a cell phone, because you need to use your cell phone for survey questions at the 10, especially at the 10:15 presentation on Leon Valley's financial future and infrastructure priorities. We are also live on Spectrum Channel 1305, YouTube, and Cablecast app on Apple TV or Roku. So this is technology. We used to not have any of this, and now we have so many choices. So thank you to Eric and Crystal. I think they're still, Crystal Miranda, who's still working on getting us going here in just a few minutes. Those of you who are participating online today can send your questions and comments to the chat box to be answered. Unfortunately, you will not be able to vote from home on your cell phone in real time. However, after today's meeting, the survey questions will be online. If you were not able to participate today, and you will be able to vote and leave your comments online through, and I said February 16th, that's the following Monday. So Manager and I were just talking about that.
It'll probably be to the 17th because we're off on that.
Oh, that's right, 17th. Okay, one more day. We have quite a bit to cover today. 4 topics, again, with citizens to be heard ending our day. And how many of you received the postcard with the 4 agenda items? Can I see your, we always want to know how our, great. And how many is this is your first time to come to a town hall meeting? Yeah. All right, Cheryl, thank you. All right, we'll give you the Maytag Award today. So anyway, great, we're so glad. We're going to begin after Dr. Caldera's update on the annual report. We're going to have a TxDOT project manager, Scott Nelson, to give the progress on the Bandera Road Parkway concept from Loop 410 to 1604. And we've been working on this project since 2018. TxDOT and/or HAP Associates have presented annual updates on this transportation improvement almost every year. So thank you. We really appreciate you being here. Next is a presentation on the STEER program, which means State of Texas Emergency Assistance Registry, from Samantha Fabian, who works for the Texas Department of Emergency Management. I first learned of this program when I attended last September, I believe it was, a community prepared workshop sponsored by the city of San Antonio. And I asked Samantha when I met her, because I was so impressed with this program, to please come to our annual town hall meeting to share it with you. And so I'm going to let her speak to it when she is up here at 9:30. So thank you, Samantha. I really do appreciate you being here. And then Dr. Caldera will then present the next item, a community conversation on Leon Valley's financial future and infrastructure priorities. It's quite a long presentation. You can see it's like an hour and a half. And Dr. Caldera will give an overview of the city's budget, including all available resources and funds. And these include general fund, enterprise fund, which is the water, sewer, and stormwater, red light camera, debt fund, and special revenue funds. In addition to these funds, the city has a capital reserve fund, which Dr. Caldera will define and explain how we earned it. The manager will then go into an analysis of future needs of the city over a 10-year period. Can you hear me? No, you can't hear me. FY 27 to 36, and you'll see that. Additionally, Dr. Caldera will discuss assigned funds for an intended use, like economic development and tree mitigation, as well as restricted funds, which means that these funds cannot be used for anything other than their intended purposes. So please raise your hand if you have any questions during that PowerPoint presentation, because it's quite long, and so we can't wait till the end. So, and please allow me to please recognize you, and we'll bring you a microphone so that you can
There's
speak.
a mic in the middle, Mayor.
There's a mic in the middle.
So if they have something to say, they can just stand up there and then you can repeat.
Okay, all right, so if you'll go to the...
And if you can't, or it's difficult, then raise your hand.
Oh, okay, all right.
Sorry.
Did y'all hear Dr. Caldera? Okay.
No.
Okay, so she said, go to the microphone, and if you can't go to the microphone, just raise your hand, and anyway, stand up and I'll recognize you. Okay, at the end of this presentation, the city manager will then present a series of survey questions on prioritizing infrastructure projects in our city. There will also be a question on removing the library annex and not replacing it, buying property on Heatner Creek erosion flood control and parkland, as well as an open-ended question on a project that you'd like to see that's not on the list. The last presentation is, again, what are we going to do for July 4th? We don't have the big celebration this year due to budget constraints. And so, but we need to do something, right? It's the 250th anniversary of the founding of the Declaration of Independence. So how are we going to celebrate? We need to do something, so we'll brainstorm on that. And then again, we have the Citizens to be Heard forum at the conclusion of the town hall meeting. And again, no action can be taken by council about these concerns other than giving factual information and existing policies related to the question or issue. No formal discussion or vote by the council can take place, but we can always add it to a future agenda item. So, here's an outline of how this meeting will be conducted. The presenters of each topic will present the information, and questions or comments will then be taken until the next presentation. If there's a polling question, and I believe we only have the polling at that 10:15, so I believe that's the only one. We are earnestly trying to work at the grassroots level in our community by listening and getting input from our citizens to make the best decisions. The council and I, along with our dedicated staff, work for you. I congratulate and thank each of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to brainstorm with others on how we can prioritize and shape our future going forward. This is true democracy in action. Let's be respectful of each other and agree to disagree without being disagreeable. So please silence all cell phones. And we're not gonna have a break. We're just gonna go straight on through this morning. So please help yourself to coffee and take breaks as you need. As you all know, the restrooms are in the back. But if you're at the table back there and you see somebody who hadn't seen in a long time, could you please either step outside if you need to talk about something so that we don't impede the conversation that's going on at the front of the room. One special request, yeah, I already said that. Okay, and the microphone, again, I'll need to recognize you to be able to speak. A second special request is Sandra Postley is at the very, very back, and we have openings for committee members on Planning and Zoning, Park Commission, Earthwise Living, and Board of Adjustment. And these committees usually meet once a month for, an hour to an hour and a half. But please consider giving back your time, talent, and creativity to your city. She's got application forms back there. She's also got all the information on voting, mail-in ballots, registration, and then Chief, who's sitting next to her, he has those envelopes for your medicines that you can just take a couple and then put your expired medicines and just mail them off. Okay? All right. Y'all ready? I am. So thank you so much. And again, I think we have a really good turnout in spite of our reschedule. So thank you all for being here again. And without further ado, let me turn over the program to Dr. Caldera. Dr. Caldera, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Can y'all hear me? Yeah, you can hear me? Great. So I'm going to go over the annual report for FY 2025 and touch a little bit on what we discussed at the last town hall meeting and kind of what came out of that a little bit. I always send out a letter thanking everybody for participating in all our city meetings. But one of the big things that we did last year was part of the conversation was your goals and objectives, your mission goals and objectives. And the council this year really spent a lot of time and effort to revamp your mission, your vision, and your goals and objectives for the future. The other thing we did last year was go over some priorities, and we'll see that in my presentation later on this morning about some priorities that have been kind of removed from the list and some priorities that have been added. And so we can't do any of this without your mayor and your city council. They adopt an annual fiscal year budget, and so we like to give it up for our city council. Your financial department is, raise your hand, Carol, is Carol Gorey. She is your finance director. She also received her certificate of achievement last year for excellence in financial reporting. And because we're going to go over a lot of budget numbers later on this morning, I'm not going to do all the highlights because it'll just be a repeat. But if you ever want to see any of the city's financial future, any financial information, you can go to the city website or you can scan that QR code. Everybody should have a copy of the annual report. Your municipal court is held or is ran by Tiffany Arizona. Tiffany, raise your hand. Hi, Tiffany. That's Tiffany. Tiffany runs your municipal court. But as far as your municipal court goes, it's not just municipal court. She processes every single payment that comes to the city. So any permitting payments, any utility bills, and they processed over 55,000 different types of payments last year. And you can see right here, I know it's hard to see, that's why you have it printed out in front of you. But that green bar is all the cases processed. Those are processed by your municipal court staff. Your municipal court staff are certified deputy court clerks. And out of your staffing levels, your municipal court, two of them have their level 2, and one of them has their level 1, and the other one is in the process of getting their level 1. Your city secretary, Sandra Passelet, raise your hand. That's Sandra. Sandra handles all of the city's open records requests, all of the minutes and agendas, and last year she processed 711 different open records requests. She's also considered your elections administrator. She handles all the elections for the city. And so she processed over 31 agenda minutes and meetings. She did over 17 subpoenas last year, and so she does a lot of work for a single-man department. Your human resources department is Lisa Hernandez. Lisa Hernandez is your HR director. Lisa handles all of your benefit administration for all of your city staff, all your work-related injuries, all of your FMLA, and Lisa processed all that. Last year she processed over 177 job applications. Your planning and zoning department, where's Michael? Michael Garardo is our new planning and zoning director. Michael handles all of your planning, zoning, but a big portion of what they do in their office is permitting, and they process a lot of permits. And last year, they processed over 1,500 different types of permits. Your Economic Development Department, this position is currently vacant, but during fiscal year 25, it was run by Roque Salinas. Roque is now the Assistant City Manager of the City of Lockhart, so we're very proud of Roque. But one of the big highlights that he did last year is we got some old vacant buildings torn down. We had the Sonic and the vet clinic taken over. But the Wiki China Bowl is also down, and we're going to be getting a Little Caesars pizza there. And so we're really excited about that as well. Your animal control and your code enforcement, this is kind of, was ran by Economic Development. And they processed about 59 dogs, that's that number right there. And they handled over 2,000 different code complaints. Your police department is Chief David Gonzalez. Chief, raise your hand. It's David. The chief and the department. So you'll see this, and everybody always asks, why do we have arrests in certain areas and arrests in other? Well, you also have a DEA task force. And your DEA task force, we call them your undercover officer. And they work, this individual had about 90 arrests and seized over $3.4 million in assets. And we don't get that money right away. Sometimes we have to wait for it to get through all the criminal appeals process. And so sometimes we don't see that money till years down the line. Your DEI task force, he processed 85 arrests and brought in or seized $1.1 million. Oh, let me go back, hold on. Your property room is ran by Erica Rivera, Officer Rivera. We get audited in our property room, and she has 100% accountability right now. And I know you don't see the number there on the screen unless I go scroll down, but it says 3. She was able to do 3 destructions last year. And so if you think about how many cases are in there and how many destructions were actually allowed by the DEA, only 3 of the cases were allowed, of information were allowed to be destroyed, because we have to wait for those cases to make it through the criminal justice system. Your detectives processed over 2,000 cases, and 171 major cases went to the DA's office. We towed 641 vehicles, but the auctions brought in $104,000. Your police department, these are separate. On-site arrests were 489. Your traffic enforcement issued 5,200 citations and issued 3,400 warnings. Your police department, this is one thing I do want to highlight. When we talk about certification level, they did and completed 5,900 hours worth of training last year, but you can see the majority of your officers have a Master Peace Officer certification. That speaks very highly of your police department. And of course, they participate in a lot of community engagement. They have National Night Out, any Halloween events that they do, the police department is here. Your fire department is ran by Chief Michael Naughton. Chief, can you raise your hand? He's back there with the bags. Chief Naughton, they do a lot of different things here with the city. But of course, they respond to your 911 calls, right? They put out fires, they're here to take you to ambulance if needed. They responded to 2,600 service calls last year with an average response time of 4 minutes and 27 seconds. They had over 2,000 EMS calls, and they completed over 6,500 total training hours. For those of you that don't know, the majority of your staff in the fire department are also paramedics. Paramedics are very hard to come by. It's not an easy certificate to have. And so when they do respond on the scene, they're almost always responding with a paramedic, which means they can administer blood, which an EMT cannot. So if you get hurt in the city of San Antonio, it's a very big likelihood that you'll only get an EMT basic. So depending on your injury, you could get different life-saving measures. So here we hold that standard very high, so when you're responding, you're getting the best. Your Public Works department is now run by David Demeline. Dave Demeline, please stand. And then David, you're gonna have to pick a table. You can't sit back there, so find a table with residents. And so Dave Demeline is now your new Public Works Director. But for FY25, it was Melinda Moritz. Thank yous for those that showed up to Melinda's retirement party. Public Works holds a lot of different projects. They have a construction crew, a water crew, and a parks or facility maintenance crew. They did some really, really big projects last year and received a lot of grant funds in order to do that. They received $3.5 million in grants. They take care of about 219 acres of grass. And the difference between people hear 200 acres and they're like, man, my daddy had a farm of over 200 acres and he cut that in one day. Why does it take our public works staff so long to get that cut? Well, ours isn't straightaway cut. It's just not an empty field, right? We have a lot of signs, there's a lot of rocks, there's a lot of trash, and so they have to get out and clear all that out before they cut. And so many times it takes them a lot longer than just hopping on a lawnmower and driving straight through and cutting that field. Your Public Works Department, this is just some pool stats for you because we're going to kind of talk about the pool later. But we have about 1,500 memberships and we process about 5,000 daily passes. Let's see here. Your Water Department, your stormwater processed over 427 cubic yards of street debris. The big thing we did in the street maintenance last year was the mill and overlay. We did 2,500 linear feet on Worsbach Road. And of course, we couldn't do any of the city events without Public Works. They handle all of your private community and conference center events, but they handle all of the city events, Earthwise Living, 4th of July, even the small little events at the library, yoga, all of the library programming. And so I've got lots of pages on Public Works, and I know this chart is hard to see, so hopefully you can see it in front of you. We started a program called ShareNet to kind of keep track of our work orders. So it is a little skewed a little bit because we're still in the process of reminding everybody to put their work order into ShareNet, but it's off to a great start. And you can see at the bottom, we also use GoGov. For those of you that have the GoGov app, you can put code violations in there when you're walking around. You can take a picture and submit it during GoGov. But you can also submit Public Works complaints in there as well. So if you see a really large pothole or a broken sidewalk, those can go in GoGov as well. And we keep track of those. So last year they processed 82 total requests that came in through GoGov. And so again, we will show you how to use GoGov. I can show the app later on if we have time at the end. Your library, your beloved library. Regina could not be here. It's ran by Regina Reed. She had a family emergency, so she's not able to attend today. But they had over 44,000 visitors in the Leon Valley Library. They had over 157 different youth programs that had over 10,000 in attendance. Your library is very well utilized, and we always try to tie a dollar amount to the service they provide. So when you go check out a book, instead of going and buying that book at Barnes & Noble that would cost you $30, you check it out at the library. And so their estimated value was over close to $1 million, $974,000. Your community relations is run by Crystal Miranda. Crystal Miranda's back here running the show for today. She handles all of your social media accounts, your city website, and now your PEG channel that now you'll be able to watch us on TV. It's going to be so fun. And we'll be doing interviews and podcasts hopefully. But the other thing she also manages is both of these buildings, the community and conference center. She's also your facilities manager. So she does that as well. And so looking ahead, and what we'll see in today's presentations is infrastructure, continuality, sustainable service efficiency, workforce strength, fiscal transparency, thoughtful financial planning, and these are just fun pictures of the staff having a good time servicing this lovely community. So thank you all for coming today. Hopefully we'll provide you some great presentations, and again, if you have any questions, we're here to answer them for you. A couple of housekeeping items. So you should have a city staff person at your table. If you do not, just raise your hand. When we get to the Mentimeter portion, all of my city staff have city cell phones. So if you do not have a city cell phone, they will help you on their city-issued device to log in to be able to do the Mentimeter. So I know some of y'all don't have a cell phone with those kinds of capabilities, and they'll be here to assist you. I see a hand back there. Mary, she has a question.
We don't have a staff member at our table.
Okay.
Where's Dave?
David, where did David go? Where did he end up? He's over there. Oh, you have Tiffany. Go over there, David. Tiffany's already there. She took that table already. And then if you don't, some people are more technologically savvy, and so if I have to move people around, we will certainly help you. So if you need
We're
help.
just gonna do the Mentimeter at the beginning of your presentation?
No, at the end. It's one of the last items.
Oh, at the very end?
At the very,
Okay.
very end.
Okay.
And
So
so,
we'll wait.
so we should be okay. We'll metal through it.
Now, are there any questions for Dr. Caldera on the annual report? This would be the time to ask it.
It will be on the city's website next week sometime.
Yes, thank you. Good work. All right, agenda item number 2C is presentation and update on Bandera Road from TxDOT. I have two representatives from TxDOT this morning, Richard Dela Cruz and Scott Nelson. I just want to give a little bit of background about each of them, and then I'll hand the microphone over to Scott Nelson. Richard is in the back, and Richard Dela Cruz is an engineer and is the Director of Transportation Planning and Development for the San Antonio District, where he oversees a broad portfolio including advanced planning, programming, design, consultant management, bridge right-of-way, local government projects, surveys, and hydrology and hydraulics. Wow, he does a lot. He began his career at Caltrans, I guess that's in California, right? As a young engineer, then decided to come to Texas, where he's been, I guess, at TxDOT ever since. He has a key role in delivering projects on Loop 1604 and IH-35 next for the region. And he holds a degree in civil engineering from where? Texas A&M. Okay, I know we've got some A&M folks here. I have Scott to my right and Scott Nelson. Yes, let's welcome Richard, please. And Scott Nelson is also an engineer on PTOE. I'm not sure what that is.
Professional traffic operations engineer.
Oh, professional traffic operations engineer. So you're going to help us on Bandera Road for sure. Yes, is an accomplished transportation engineer currently serving as the Advanced Transportation Planning Director at the Texas Department of Transportation. With a strong background in project management and engineering, he also held positions as project manager and project engineer at Peg Dawson Engineers. Scott holds both a master's degree in transportation and highway engineering and a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Texas A&M. There you go. That's a good training ground for these engineers. I personally work with Scott not only on this project, but he also presents a lot at the Alamo Area Metropolitan Planning Organization on all of the future programs in our region. And so it's with great pleasure that I present to you, Scott Nelson. Scott, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Howdy.
Howdy.
All right. So, like Mayor mentioned, my name is Scott Nelson. I'm the Advanced Planning Director for TxDOT here in San Antonio. I'm also the TxDOT Product Manager for the SH16 Bandera Road project. Before we get going, I do want to express our appreciation to Dr. Caldera and Mayor Riley for rescheduling from the 24th. So I'm sure as y'all remember, that was the day we had all the ice and winter weather here in San Antonio. So with TxDOT, safety is our top priority. So what that means is when we have winter weather events like that, it's all hands on deck. So including folks like Richard and myself, we were in the middle of working a 12-hour midnight to noon shift when the town hall was originally scheduled. So we were out there in the field, assessing the conditions and helping coordinate our crews out there in the field. So we're very appreciative of y'all rescheduling to a day with much better weather. So with that, we'll kind of dive into to SH16. The Bandera Road project. So like Mayor mentioned, I think either myself or a representative from HAF has been here pretty much every year for the last couple of years. So we'll kind of go high level through what the project is, and then we'll kind of focus in more on what's changed in the last year or so. So every meeting that we have at TxDOT, it starts with a safety moment. And so we recently started a new campaign called Drive Like a Texan. So the goal of that campaign is, we're all Texans here. When you see your neighbor out in front of their house, you treat them with kindness, you're courteous, and you're safe. There's no reason we shouldn't extend that same manner of being a Texan to the roads. And so, all of us, we can do our part when we're out on the roads. Be kind, be courteous, be safe, and hopefully we'll help to end our streak of fatalities that we've had on a Texas road. So every day since November 7th, 2000, we've had a fatality on a Texas road. So anything we can do to lead by example and do our part to help in that streak, being kind, being courteous, being safe, it's going to go a long way. So the Bandera Road project. So overall, it's from 410 all the way out to 1604. So probably about half of it or so, give or take, is here in Leon Valley. Total, it's about 6.5 miles. And so this corridor, it is one of the most congested corridors, not just in the region, but also the state. If you look historically at the top 100 list, this corridor has been in there pretty frequently. All right, back it up. So the project on a whole, we are looking at doing operational improvements. I'll kind of dive into those in a minute. One point I do want to point out at the bottom is this project, we are adding additional lanes as well as operational improvements in the corridor. So at the end of the day, we're looking at acquiring about 7.7 acres kind of spread between Leon Valley and the city of San Antonio. In order to fit those additional lanes, we're also adding some other improvements that I'll touch on, as well as improving the drainage there. So the goal of what we're trying to do, our goal is to improve the mobility, safety, and community connectivity in the corridor. Another goal is to reduce congestion. I talked about that congestion, how it's frequently in top 100. One of our goals is to try to improve that. Looks like I got a timer on this thing. All right. One of the other goals of the project is to accommodate bicyclists and pedestrians. So today, we do have some sidewalks and spots, but one of the goals of this project is to improve that connectivity, not just for pedestrians on sidewalks, but also have accommodations for bicyclists. And so basically throughout the corridor, end to end, we're looking at shared use paths. Basically, they're 10-foot wide sidewalks with improved design, things like that accommodate bicyclists and pedestrians. Basically get them off the roadway and improve that connectivity, both along Bandera Road, but also to the Greenway trails as well as across Bandera Road. All right. So, what are we proposing? So at the end of the day, and depending on where you're at, we're either expanding from north of Gilbo, it's 4 lanes today. South of Gilbo, it's 6 lanes today. Throughout the corridor, all the way from 410 to 1604, we're proposing to expand it to 8 lanes. So basically, we're adding 1 lane kind of through this section of Leon Valley, and then 2 lanes in the northern piece. That way, we're consistent and have 8 lanes throughout. The other thing we're doing is we're converting 12 of the existing signals there to what we're calling restricted crossing U-turns or R-cut intersections. So it's a similar configuration. You remember what just opened up out in Helotes in the last couple of years? Similar configuration of that. So when you think about when you're sitting in a traditional intersection, normal intersection, you're getting the green light about a quarter of the time. You're sitting there waiting. You got to have both directions go from the side street. You got to have the other direction come. On Bandera Road. So you're getting the green light about a quarter of the time. With the restricted crossing U-turns, you're able to run the left turn and the right turn at the same time, and then run the through as the other movement. So you're getting the green light about half the time. So you're getting significantly more green time at those signals, so you're able to move a lot more cars. So those improvements plus the additional lanes, we're expecting to see a significant improvement in the operations on Bandera. And I mentioned the shared use paths already. The goal of those is to improve the mobility of folks, not just in their cars, but also folks on bikes and folks walking the corridor as well. So where have we gone kind of in the last year or so? So about this time last year, we were at what we call 90% schematic. Basically, the schematic the initial design was mostly done, but we weren't quite across the finish line yet. That design showed about 19 acres of proposed right-of-way, included about 9 or 10 displacements. So gas stations, fast food restaurants, things like that. If you remember back in probably about this time last year, we had an open house here in Leon Valley, and part of it was in this room. And so we met with y'all, gathered feedback. Part of what we did after that public meeting, we made a couple of refinements to the design. And part of that refinement was we reduced the right-of-way impact. So we reduced it down from about 19 acres to a little under 8 acres. So basically kind of skinnied it up, tried to avoid some impacts, and we cut the number of displacements. So basically, buildings, businesses that would be impacted from 9 down to about 3. And so we also kind of cut down the number of parcels we'd be acquiring from about 246 to 123. So we really kind of took the time, kind of tried to optimize the design a little bit and squeeze it in. So where we're at right now, we more or less kind of finished that initial design, and we're on the verge of getting environmental clearance. So our environmental studies, kind of looking at all the different elements of the corridor, from air quality to noise to historic elements, things like that. We are on the verge of having that environmental clearance and having all those studies complete. So we're expecting to have the environmental clearance for this project probably sometime this spring is what we're targeting. And so that's an important step, because that then allows us to start to acquire right-of-way and progress on the next steps of the process. I'll kind of touch on that and talk on the timeline there and kind of the challenges we're expecting. But this is a big milestone for most of our projects, is to get that environmental clearance, because it helps to allow us to take the next steps to get those projects ready. So talking about the next steps, so kind of where we're at right now, I mentioned we're on the verge of environmental clearance, likely sometime this spring. So kind of coming with that, the next steps of the process would be right-of-way acquisition and the detailed design. Kind of coming with that, how we would build the project. Essentially, we would start on the south end. Basically, kind of this piece through Leon Valley here, essentially where the direct connectors tie in, and continue north up to Gilbo. So that would be the first phase of the project. The second phase would be basically Gilbo all the way out to 1604. The big question mark right now, though, is on the timing. And the honest answer on when it's going to go to construction is we don't know. So statewide, we're seeing a trend, what we're calling returning to normal levels. Basically, a lot of the money coming in at the statewide level to fund transportation projects, it's more or less plateauing. A lot of it was driven based on oil starts and things like that out in the Permian Basin and oil-producing regions. We're starting to see those plateau. So a lot of the timelines that we were expecting for projects to get delivered, we're having to be strategic and draw some of those out. So the honest answer is we don't know when this project will go to construction. But with the environmental clearance, it allows us to, as we get funds for the right-of-way acquisition, things like that, to strategically start to acquire right-of-way and get it ready. So we are on our end working to continue to develop it. So we have procured a consultant for the detailed design, but they're not likely going to start for the next, probably at least till next fiscal year. But we are getting those dominoes in place to where we can start to progress the project. We just don't necessarily know when that construction is going to happen. But it is a regional priority for us, and we're going to continue to try to develop it as best we can, given the strategic resources we have. So with that, here's my contact information. So if you have any questions on the project or even projects in general, I'm the planning director, so I kind of have my eyes on a lot of the projects coming down the pipeline across the region. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, shoot me an email, give me a phone call, and I'm happy to touch base with y'all.
All right, are there any questions for Scott Nelson on the Bandera Road project? Okay, yes. You'll come to that. And state your name and just for the record. Thank you.
So my name is Ann Sawyer.
I don't
Turn it
think
on.
it's on. Yeah,
This is eating my time to do this. I don't know where.
there you go.
Right there? Yeah? Yeah? I'll just speak up.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so my question, even my feedback back to that public meeting was that I found the R cuts really kind of complicated. I've used them in the Stone Oak area. Very frustrated with them. Coming down from Bandera, and you have to do this diagonal to get onto Bandera Road, find that very frustrating. Now it's, no? Okay. So I'm just wondering, why can't it be something simple? Just widen it to 8, 10 lanes, no bicyclists, no pedestrians, just traffic lights, just spread it wider and get it done sooner, because it's actually been an ongoing conversation for the past 20 years. 25. And how many? 25 years. And projections that I remember about being with all these R cuts is it was going to take 20 years to finish construction. So why not just make it simple, just get it done, and forget about anything complicated, just get it done. It's going to cost a lot less money, it's going to take a lot less time, and the longer we wait, the more congested it's going to be.
Well, so I'll kind of touch on a couple of different elements separately there. So I'll touch on the bicyclists and pedestrians you mentioned first. So anytime we use federal funds on a project, we're required to accommodate bicyclists and pedestrians. So given a project of this size, it's almost certainly going to need federal funds. And so we don't necessarily want to close the door on that. Touching on kind of just going out there and adding an extra lane, that is something we actually explored. And the main reason we didn't end up going that route was when we look at the traffic volumes of Bandera, especially in this part, through Leon Valley. Traffic volume wise, you're looking at basically freeway type volumes. It's upwards of 80,000 vehicles a day, which is not too far off from SH 151 just on the road. And so you think about how SH 151 flows. Before our project out there, it was struggling as a 4-lane freeway. That's without signals. But you take Bandera Road, even as an 8-lane facility, and you add in all those signals, all those driveways. Even with 8 lanes, it's still going to struggle. And you look further out as growth continues out in Helotes, that issue is just going to compound. It really had to kind of be both the added capacity with additional lanes and the operational improvements with the R-Cut. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to explain, the R-Cut, like use Seneca as an example?
Sure.
And then also, like how you would do it to flip around? And then also, how many properties are affected on the right of way in Leon Valley that may be displaced?
Okay. So Mayor asked me to kind of explain the R-Cut concept, and so I'll kind of talk through it. So essentially, if you're driving on Bandera Road, there's not much of a change. If you're at a light, and today you're generally able to go left, straight or through, you're going to continue to do that in the future. Where the change is going to occur is on the side streets. So if you're approaching from Seneca or Huebner or one of those side streets, today you can make that left turn or make that through movement across. With the R-Cut concept, basically all of the movements from the side street, they're going to make a right turn, a signalized right turn, and then they're going to progress to the right, and then there will be a downstream turnaround, generally about a quarter mile on average. And there'll be a signalized turnaround there to bring you back the other direction. So at the end of the day, it is a little bit further of a drive, but like I mentioned, the signal operations are getting basically twice as much green time per light. So you're going to drive a little further, but it's going to be more or less constant movement. So the lights are timed where basically when you make that right turn, you'll get the green on the far end and basically be able to come back. So it is going to be a little bit longer to drive, but at the end of the day, you're going to be sitting in traffic a whole lot less with that configuration. And then the right-of-way. So as far as the displacements go, I'm not aware of any displacements still in Leon Valley. I think we might have eliminated all those. I'll confirm that with you. But I think the displacements we have. I know there was a gas station up by Peru. I think a Burger King a little bit north of here, and then one other parcel. But I'll confirm that with you after this, Mayor. But I think we've eliminated all of them in Leon Valley.
Yes, sir. If you please state your name.
Hi, David Martin, is this working?
It's working, but you gotta really be on
Yeah.
top of it, so if you
You
want to
guys
use
should
this
fix this
option.
before, okay.
It's big, so we just got.
Hi, David Moran. So, I just heard you explain an R-cut lane, whatever. So I make a right turn. And then I go down a quarter mile and make a left turn, make a U-turn, right?
Yes.
How many lanes am I crossing over to get over to that left lane?
Well,
And what am I doing with traffic that's coming that way, and I've got to fight, and I'm not the only one going in that direction?
Well, so the critical element to that is they are signalized movements off the side street. So there is no one that you're necessarily fighting with. Basically, you're coming out of that side street with a protected green light. So basically, you're going to line up in whichever lane you need to get in. If you're heading, if you're coming from the east and you're trying to head south, you line up in those inside lanes if you're trying to head back to the south. So that way you're not having to weave over. If you're trying to go north, you'd be in the outside lanes. So we're going to have signage, things like that, to help direct you to that. But really, the short answer is you're not fighting with anybody because all those movements are going to be signalized.
Okay, and just to add on to this, it would be nice if we saw a diagram so that everybody could see what an R lane really looks like. So maybe in the next presentation, we have some type of graphics that would help us out.
Well, and the other source of information I'll direct you towards is we had that public meeting back in February of last year. The public meeting website is still online, and it has not just diagrams showing how an R-Cut operates, it also has a video showing you how to drive it and the benefits of R-Cuts. So a lot of that material that you'd be looking for of how to drive an R-Cut, it's available on that public meeting site.
Mr. Yarnell, go ahead.
Good morning. Olin Yarnell, Salky Lane.
Use the other
Yeah,
one.
use the other one, yeah. Thank you. Great.
You know, one of the things we need to do in our city is fix this system. It's been this way for 10 or 15 years. I don't have any problem with R cuts. I find it very easy if you just follow the directions. It was a little confusing to begin with because it's completely different. Now, my other question is, what's going to happen to the project with all these time whiskers that we're adding to the timeline? Are we going to have future changes? Are we going to be able to keep what we're doing? We're just eventually drop the money in and go, or how is this going to work?
Well, so more or less what's out there today, it would stay out there until the project comes. But yeah, more or less, we're gonna develop it on our end. I mean, as we get funds to acquire right away, you will start to see some turning of dirt out there. Basically, before we start the hard construction of the project, you'll see utilities move out of the way, things like that. So you will see some activity in the corridor, but more or less how it operates today is how it will operate until we start construction on the project.
So we'll get our buckets of money and just come at a future date.
That's what we're planning on. We're trying to line this project up to where when the opportunity becomes available and the money is there, we have it ready to where we can get it out the door.
You say that this is one of the top priorities or issues in the state for traffic situation. Where does it land on the list as far as you can determine with your professionalism? Are we toward the top, or way down a ways?
Well,
everybody in the state wants the TxDOT money.
They do, and it is competitive. So I can speak to the region because Mayor mentioned I presented to the MPO recently. So part of that presentation was presenting on the priorities for the TxDOT San Antonio district in our basically what we call our 10-year plan. It's our Unified Transportation Program. And so every year we present on our projects, look at projects that are coming on the pipeline, projects that are funded, projects that are partially funded. And I think Bandera was somewhere in the 11 range, but it was one of the top projects that did not have funding tied to it. So on that list were projects that were fully funded that are going to let this year, projects that were partially funded that are going to be letting in the next few years. So it was one of the top unfunded projects for the region out of, I think, like 47 projects that we were tracking as part of that list.
Thank you.
I know we don't know when construction is, but I think one of our concerns is how are we going to manage the construction once it begins? Now, I know the right-of-way is different, but will TxDOT, or do they do this on other projects where you communicate to the citizens, say, this lane's going to be closed from this time to this time? I mean, if you could address it. I know we're not close to it, but just since we have a captive audience.
Yes, and so Mayor was asking how we communicate during construction. And so I will point out there's going to be a few different ways of communication. One is, I'm sure you all have seen all over social media, the news, our 1604 project on the north side. We just opened up the last direct connector there, but a lot of the construction impacts, things like that, you're going to see it in the news, social media, things like that. Our public information officers are active on Nextdoor, Facebook, pretty much all of your main platforms. If you're active on there, you'll see it. The other element of it too is a lot of our construction folks. When we have construction impacts in the corridor, they will be reaching out to those businesses, property owners, folks like that who are directly impacted to let y'all know directly what the impacts are going to be.
Anyone else? So when do you think this project's going to be shovel ready to where all we're waiting for is funding? Because shovel ready is a big, big thing in the transportation
So
industry.
Mayor asked when the project would be shovel ready, and the honest answer is we don't really know at this point. We're having to be strategic with our resources and develop it, but it is not just the construction dollars that we're having to be more strategic with. It is our resource dollars as far as our ability to use consultants to do design, things like that. So it's one of those. The honest answer is we don't necessarily know.
And one last thing, I think Ann Sawyer mentioned it was going to be 20 years to get it all complete. What is the timeline? I mean, on an average?
Well,
This project.
it is possible, but
Okay.
again, it's going to be really dependent on funding. You can look at 1604, that was one we developed, and then the funding all lined up, and so we are going to have all 6 segments of 1604 from Bandera to 35 under construction, and that happened a lot faster than 20 years. But we have had other projects that have kind of gone in phases like that have taken about that time. So it's really tough for us to say at this point. It's going to be a lot of it's going to be driven on funding and those elements as we move forward.
We'll have you back next year.
Yep.
Okay, we have Councilor Mersch. Go ahead.
I guess my question is, did you learn anything from the construction in Helotes The construction of the Lotus was horrible. You would be going along in a lane and all of a sudden the lane's gone and there was no signage, there was no anything. So the R-Cut construction in Helotes, in my mind, was a disaster. Both with the amount of traffic, but with the lack of signage to let you know what lane you really had to be in because they changed constantly.
Yeah, and I will say, you know, no construction project is perfect, and we're constantly learning, constantly trying to improve. And so some of those lessons learned, we will try to incorporate into future projects.
Anyone else? All right.
All right, thank y'all.
Speak now for, thank you so much, Scott. Let's give him
Pause for our appreciation. Thank you so much, Scott, and we look forward to continuing to work with you as we see this project through. All righty, thank you, Richard. We appreciate you being here as well. Okay, I just want to remind you that we do have a pet vaccination clinic going on at the library parking lot today till 1 p.m. I believe. So if you have an animal that needs vaccination, is it free?
There's a slight, small
It's like
cost.
small cost. Okay, so just wanted to remind everybody of that. All right, so let me see what the next agenda is. Agenda item 2D. All right. All right. Presentation on State of Texas Emergency Assistance Registry, or the acronym is STEAR, S-T-E-A-R. We have Samantha Fabian, MPA, from the Texas Department of Emergency Management. And Samantha is with, as I said, the Texas Division of Emergency Management. She holds a Master's of Professional Studies in Homeland Security and a Bachelor of Science in Security and Risk Analysis from Penn State University, as well as a second master's degree in public service and administration from Texas A&M University. She serves as the program manager for the State of Texas Emergency Assistant Registry, or STEER, and the Evacuation Tracking Network, ETN. In this role, she provides technical support for both systems during emergency and non-emergency operations, supporting citizens and government users statewide. And like I said, I met her last September at the community meeting that the city of San Antonio had on emergency preparedness. And I have had more citizens ask me, Mayor, in time of an emergency, you know, I'm by myself at home on oxygen. I mean, how do I get word that I might need some help? But anyway, this is a program that might help. And so I was so thrilled to meet her and learn about it. And she's going to explain it to you and how to register as well. So without further ado, let's bring up Samantha Fabian. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Morning.
Morning. You gotta eat it.
I gotta eat.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
All right. So just a quick show of hands. Does anyone know what STEER was? No? You did kind of. You did.
Kind of.
So I'm gonna go on like a quick little timeline. We do love our acronyms. It's a mouthful to say the full State of Texas Emergency Assistant Registry. But prior to its existence, it was known as the Transportation Assistance Registry. So TAR, what that did was look at the individual's transportation needs. This was enacted after Hurricane Katrina and Rita. And then in 2013, it became STEER. And the difference between TAR and STEER, we still have the TAR element. So if an individual lacks transportation, they can register their information. But STEER kind of goes the extra step. We want to learn a little bit more about the individual's personal needs. So this could be if it's their medical needs, access and functional needs, limited mobility, or again, they lack that transportation. We continue to have some changes. So in 2021, Senate Bill 968 was put into place. That was followed after Winter Storm Uri. Same year, we had closed it off to the entire state. You had to participate in STEER. So your community would have to opt in order for citizens to register their information. And then in 2024, we went into a new database, and it just kind of streamlined the information. So that meant more validation of the address, the phone number, and just the way that we were obtaining the question, or obtaining the answers from those questions. So I kind of briefly went over it. What is STEER exactly? So it's a registry that's free for Texans of all ages. I do have some children in my registry, but it's predominantly going to be on the elderly side. But it is for all ages. It's free. The information that's obtained at the state level is then shared with your local officials and your emergency managers. Individuals, again, with disabilities that are medically fragile, access and functional needs, or again, they lack that transportation in the event of an emergency. Follow from that, again, it gets provided to your local emergency manager and your officials to better plan and prepare for emergencies and disasters. It's completely voluntary. The biggest thing is it does not guarantee any specific services. So it's really important that we have an emergency plan in place. It is an annual enrollment, so I will kind of show a postcard that we do send out. We have other ways, either an email, phone call, or a text message to get re-registered. So you'll receive those every year. And it's important that it is used different in different jurisdictions. So if you have any specific questions, it's important to reach out to your local emergency management office for more information. So this is kind of like a chart. One is going to be in reference to a hurricane, another one is going to be for a winter event. It's really, really important to get your information registered prior to disaster. What we tend to see is when we start talking about what we're expecting in the forecast, we start to see a spike of enrollment. So that kind of equates to longer call times for 211 call specialists that we have an agreement with. So you're going to be waiting on the phone longer, or if you're emailing your registration form, it may not be registered right away. And we bring this up because if you register last minute, that information may not make it to your local emergency management office. So they may not have that visibility of that individual that has just registered. So briefly, what kind of questions are we asking on our enrollment form? So required information, anything with an asterisk on our registration form, that's going to be something that you need to fill out. So name, address, phone number, those are going to be our required fields. And then these are going to be our additional questions. Some of these may not be required. So if you have a pet, we're going to ask questions if you have a cage with that pet. We're going to have questions on caregiver information, medical equipment, and then if you have transportation needs. So there's going to be a series of questions. I do have registration forms in this folder and more information on the program as well. And then you can kind of start to see those asterisks on here, and then in the online form, you won't be able to submit or continue forward with the registration process until all those questions are answered. So briefly, ways to get registered. Of course, our primary is going to be going online. Information form in here does have a QR code that you can scan. That will take you to our landing page, or you can just visit steer.texas.gov. If you have a video relay service equipment, you can call 211. There's an 877 number, and that PDF form can be emailed to STEER as well. So we do have that memorandum agreement with our 211 partners, so they do all of our over-the-phone enrollment. So by calling 211 option 4, you will get a call specialist with 211 that will go through the entire enrollment process with you. From there, they will go ahead and submit it on your behalf. And then if you have specific questions, you will have to either call the steer phone number, which is gonna be at the end of our slides, or email steer. So if there was an incident where you're like, oh no, I messed up on the phone number, or I gave you the wrong address, they'll help you get in contact with me, or so we can kind of go through that process and getting that information updated. This is a big question that I normally get. Can you register for someone else? So the answer is yes, but I always ask that you get their consent. The biggest thing is because I do send out those annual enrollment reminders, I've gotten citizens that have been really concerned, or they've received reverse 911 messaging, or Everbridge, however the city or the county reaches this population. It's important that they know that they're in this registry. The last thing I want to do is scare someone. They're like, what is this? But it came from a good place, that loved one or their nurse put them into the system. So have that conversation, and within that conversation, start talking about how do we get better prepared? What does our communication plan look like? What does our emergency plan look like? Because again, it does not guarantee specific services. What does your plan look like? I have flyers at my table. There's some information here as well on how to create your emergency bag and what items should be in there. And then I do have an item called the File of Life that you can fill out. I always say it in pencil, so as your medications or your allergies update, you can make those corrections there as well. You fill that out, put it on your fridge. This way, if you ever had to leave your home, you can take that with you, or a first responder can take that with them to the hospital as well. And then the biggest thing is practice that plan. Make sure the person that you have on your communication plan is aware that you have their contact there. So this way, when you have to put it into action, you're ready for it as well. And this is our re-enrollment reminder postcard. So this goes out every year at the beginning. So generally January 1, you should start seeing these enrollment reminders come to your mailbox. If you don't want a postcard, we do have those options of email, phone, or text. You'll receive one of those messaging around the same time at the beginning of the year with more information how to get re-registered. Again, it's important that we re-register every year. Your information does change, or if you move or things are obviously different. We want to make sure that we're capturing that information. And then this is my contact information, my email, and then the website. Again, the folders will have more information in it. Again, on how to create your emergency bag, the QR code on how to get to the website, and the paper registration form as well.
All right, are there any questions for Samantha? Yes. There we go. Come on,
Julie, if you'll just come to I think we have a little handheld. You don't need it. Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to mention, if people don't know, in conjunction with this, is I have learned that if you have any medical equipment that requires power, such as a heart monitor or oxygen, you can register with CPS.
You can register with CPS.
The doctors don't tell you this. I don't know how I found this out, but any type of machine that requires electricity, if you notify CPS, they will put you so that you don't become part of a rolling blackout. They can't control it if the whole power goes down, but at least they know, and will work fast to get your power back. Because after our freeze, there were a lot of people that had trouble, and they do register you.
We'll try to follow back up with that. Okay, anyone else on the STEER program? Yes. Darby, go ahead.
Where's the local emergency management plan place? How do you get on with the local people?
So on the actual registration process, there's a way to locate your local emergency management office and their contact. And a lot of that information is public knowledge as well. So usually before we integrated that into the STEER website, it was just simply just kind of like Googling it and seeing where that contact information is. So if you need assistance with it, you can definitely contact the STEER email or by phone. And I'm not sure, is it on your city website as well?
Emergency management, I think so.
Yes,
Yes, it
emergency,
is.
yes, it
And
is.
then it's gonna be on your government website.
Yeah.
Okay, so Samantha, so say the people in Leon Valley register and it goes into the state database. So what do you do with that information? Do you send it back to the local police and fire and EMS to let them know these people have registered? I know there's no guarantee, but I don't want y'all to register for naught, you know, we want it to mean something, so.
Yes, so it is given to your local officials. So your EMC, emergency management coordinator, you actually have access to it as well. It lives in our TDM portal, and then whomever is also appointed can have access to this as well. There is a disclaimer, so when you do register, you are agreeing for this information to be shared with other state and local partners during a disaster, so they have visibility of it. I do send out reminder emails to say, hey, make sure you're logging in, reviewing your list. So this way you're fully aware of your vulnerable community as well. So they have direct access, it's safeguarded, it's not everyone has login credentials. So we have 3 primary and then 1 additional person that would be appointed by the mayor or your EMC as well.
And when do you send that out? Because I've never
So-
received one, so.
Yes,
Is there a charge to belong to steer?
no, it's completely free. And then to answer your question, so if you're on my list of contacts, you would be receiving emails prior to a weather event in that respect. So I do send out those emails to say, hey, do you need assistance with logging in? And then routinely, I always recommend just kind of checking in every month, quarterly, just to make sure that your information is up to date.
Yes, Mr. Moran, go
Hi,
ahead.
all right, Dave Moran again. I just returned to my home state 4 years ago. I lived someplace where there were problems, earthquakes, fires, so you probably know where that is. But back there, and I think this is something that you mentioned, I think it's really important. She mentioned a go bag, and I think for everybody here, you should always have what they call a go bag. It's just a carry-on bag that size. You're gonna have an extra pair of shoes, socks, clothing, something comfortable, and that should always just stay in a corner so that if there's ever an emergency, I mean, we had a tornado warning as close as Marshall High School last year, and also with this freeze. That go bag could have battery backup for your phone. You could also have the clothing that you need, and all you do is just pick up that bag and take it to your safe area or take it into your car. Always have a go bag. Not just for yourself, but for other family members with you. It's really important, it's really easy, and it's just extra clothes that you're not wearing every day. Next extra pair of shoes, sturdy shoes that you can walk in case you gotta walk in the dark. And so it's just something that we should really emphasize as a city, and hopefully this moves out to bigger things, to have that go bag. You never know when you're gonna need it.
Thank you. And that information's in here also, and you bring up a great point, is having those conversations with other, like your family members, like Medicaid and Medicare suppliers, your doctor, just to kind of get a better understanding. If I have durable medical equipment, if there is an emergency, what does that look like? How do I get better prepared? And have those conversations. We call it blue sky days. Have those conversations during those blue sky days, so this way you have your plan, you exercise it, and you're prepared.
Anyone else? Yeah, I think maybe we ought to have a seminar on how to put together one of those bags. Because we always put it off. I do. So, but maybe if we all came together and said, okay, we're going to put together a bag today, I don't know, just an idea. So, okay, you're welcome. Anything else? All right, so please give Samantha back to the left, and she's got plenty of brochures and information for you. So, now it's 20 till. I'm concerned because we noticed this at 10:15.
You put estimated time, Mayor.
Oh, okay, estimated time. I just know that some people maybe just would come at a specific, at a time that was noticed, but we're gonna go on.
estimating the time. All right, so we are going to go to 2E, Investing in Tomorrow, a community conversation on Leon Valley's financial future and infrastructure priorities. So we have Dr. Crystal Caldera, our city manager, here to present this topic. So thank you so much. I know she's been working on it for a couple of months, and it's we have quite a lot of time. So if you do have a question, is that right, Doctor? During the presentation, just stop and raise your hand, and we'll.
Now that I have extra time.
Now that we have extra time. Okay, there we go. Thank you. All right, thank you, Doctor.
So, I mean, I can attempt to do stand-up up here, but I don't think you find any of my jokes funny. So I am going to get started. Some residents did mention that they wanted to come for this presentation, and so if we get people that come in and I need to kind of backtrack a little bit, I'll certainly do that. And so we're going to really be talking about investing in tomorrow, and investing in tomorrow here with the city of Leon Valley. And so what I've been told a lot is that municipal budgets are confusing. And so I'm going to try really, really hard to give you Budget Basic 101 and then kind of go over what your capital reserve fund is and the importance of your capital reserve fund and how we use it and how we kind of build that up. And so just to make sense of the budget, just some budget basics, right? So if you take a look at your own family budget, you take a look, it looks like a little piggy bank. And you budget for things like your house, your car, your utilities, and your food. And if you're fortunate enough, at the end of the day, you have a little bit of money left over, then you budget for things like entertainment or emergencies. And then maybe your long-term stuff like future retirement. City of Leon Valley's budget is much like the same way you kind of budget for yourself. We budget for your emergency services, your water, your court and your staff administration, your public works department, and then if we have a little bit of money left over that's a picture of a park, it's our fun thing, we go ahead and set aside for your quality of life. But we also want to make sure that we set aside for those long-term things, like you set aside for retirement or your future needs. We want to make sure we set aside for long-term infrastructure needs, your public works building, your city hall. And so, down to the basics, what is a budget? A budget is just a basic financial plan. But for the city of Leon Valley, it's a little bit more. It shows the residents, the council gets elected in, and it shows y'all that we're setting priorities for the city and we're getting those accomplished. And so our budget cycle runs from October through September, and we begin planning right now. And your council approves a 1-year operating budget and a multi-year capital plan. And so your operating budget is your immediate operations. It's your day-to-day, what keeps the city going. And so again, we look at it like a little piggy bank. It's your court administration. It's your HR department. It's your public works. But it's much more than just your public works staff, right? You pay for the lawnmower, the gas that goes in that lawnmower, the oil that goes in that lawnmower. Your city council. You don't pay your city council members, but you got to keep the lights on in the council chambers. That PowerPoint has to come on, we have to be able to stream, all of that costs money. It also covers your IT services, all of your emergency personnel, your permitting, your gas that goes in all those vehicles, all of your utilities, and your Leon Valley Public Library. Your multi-year capital plan is your investments of long-term assets that benefit the city over a longer period of time. And so you take a look at that piggy bank, and it is all of your buildings. It's your community and conference center, your library, your city hall, your public works building. It's any of the land acquisition. For those of you that are familiar with the Seneca West project, we purchased that land, but we also ended up selling that land. It's your big IT servers. It is all of your vehicles in your police and fire department. It's all the equipment at public works. It is also your road construction. You have something called a street maintenance fund, but your street maintenance fund only is able to be used to maintain streets. So it's like your slurry seals, your coating, that kind of thing. But if you need a complete street reconstruction, that's going to have to come out of your general fund. Also, any flood control projects also would be part of this plan. And so the city, like the mayor mentioned, have a multitude of different plans. We have the general fund, the enterprise fund, the red light cameras, you have debt service, And then we have special revenue funds. You have crime control, community and conference center, street maintenance, police forfeiture, child safety, LEOS, all of those are special funds. What we're gonna be talking mostly about today is the big one, the general fund budget. And so making sense of the budget. So I'm gonna go through these pretty quickly, but the city's revenue, as you can see from this chart, mostly comes in from your sales and ad valorem tax. And so when people ask, well, what is revenue? Well, we take a look at it as like your paycheck, right? That's what comes into your household in order for you to pay for your expenses. This is like the city's paycheck. We get our ad valorem and our sales tax, and that equates to about $14.7 million. Our expenditures cover the majority, so I want you to remember this, the majority of this is your personnel. In order to run the city, you've got to pay all the city staff to be here. And so that's the majority of your cost goes to personnel. And that'll come into play just a little bit later. But your total expenditures is $17.8 million in expenditures. And so people always like to say, well, where does all that money go? It must go to police. It must go to fire. Well, actually, the majority of that goes to your public works department, followed by your fire, then your police department. Yeah. All right, so making sense of the budget. You see this chart, it's really, really hard to see, right? And then you zoned out, everybody's eyes flashed over, and you saw like dead buildings. Right, everybody's like, no, don't want to pay attention. So I'm just gonna break this down really quick for you. What you need to know from this chart is the city brings in enough revenue in your operating revenue budget to cover your expenditures. You have a balanced budget. We're not taking any money from your savings account in order to make your daily operations work. You are completely sufficient the way you are standing. As a matter of fact, you had $3,500 left over. Right? It's a lot of money. Man, I thought we were going on vacation. Well, that $3,575 you have left over after last year's budget goes into your capital reserve fund. And so the council last year said, hey guys, we have, let me see if my pointer's gonna work. Probably is not, because we're having a lot of technical issues. All right, so the very, very top number on that chart says $6,771,000, right? That was your beginning fund balance. That beginning fund balance is essentially your reserve fund. And the council said, well, we're gonna spend $1 million in capital, and so that $1 million brings down that fund balance. And the council decided to do something new. See the big arrow right there? Where's Mr. Martinez at? Mr. Martinez, okay. Mr. Martinez, when he was on council, he was a big advocate for this. He wanted us to set aside separate funds for future needs. And so the council decided to finally do that, first time ever in 20 years to be able to do that. We set aside money for projected needs, and that is going towards a future ambulance purchase, a pool grant. So if you haven't heard, we received $759,000 in a pool grant. The city has to come up with the other half. But in order to renovate the Forest Oaks pool, in order for us to be compliant, there was no way we were going to be able to do $1.4 million in renovations of the pool. So thanks to Dave Demeline and his crew, they were able to get and secure that grant. And then they also set aside some $75,000 for the fire department, because when they go into fires, they need to breathe. And so, unfortunately, because of that, we're going to give them that extra $75,000. In order for them to buy that bunker gear, it costs to replace it all about, or it's their SCAGO equipment in order to read, $375,000. So we set aside money, all that's going to have to be replaced in the future, and so we have that set aside for next year. The other reason that council was so indicative and trying really hard to set aside the money for the ambulance is it takes 600 days for us to get an ambulance at the time we get ready to order that ambulance. And so what's happening is, 28 comes and we need an ambulance, we place the order. But we need the ambulance in 28. And so we're unable to get that ambulance actually till like FY30 because it takes 600 days. And so what this allowed the staff to do is go ahead and place that order because we know that the money's going to be there when it comes time for the ambulance to be delivered. And so we got ready to budget for that amount and prepared for that in the future. So at the end of the day, you got left with $5.2 million at the end of FY25. We are now in 26, so I'm going to give you a new fund balance here in just a little bit. But this is what it looked like. The other thing, just to point out, not part of this conversation a little bit, but your tax rate, the council did raise it last year to 0.54. The big reason they did that was to add 3 firefighters to the fire department budget. And so they also need associated equipment with that as well. And so that came out to a little bit more in order to hire firefighters. So we did hire 3 new firefighters last year. They increased your property taxes to 0.54. But the fire chief is very happy, and I'm sure at the end of the meeting, y'all can certainly ask how that has helped him, and he is prepared to answer that. Mayor, he's got a question.
Oh, yes. Mr. Compass, do you want to go to the microphone or? Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
I just wanted to point out that we have not increased the fire department since 1988, when there was approximately 8,000 residents. We're now close to 12,000, a 50% increase, and yet we had not ever increased our fire personnel. So that's why we did it this year.
Thank you. Okay, so in trying, I'm sorry.
I just want to see if there's anyone else.
Sorry, Mayor Densey. So that's just a quick budget recap. So just to kind of go over one more time, your operating revenue that comes in covers your operating expenditures, and so you are working efficiently. All right. So I just want to go over what the council decided to buy last year from your capital, from your savings. And what they decided was, for those of you that don't know, when we redid City Hall, we put in a gym for the police and fire to use at the police department. It's really become a police department gym. The equipment was purchased in 2014, and unfortunately we purchased at the time like academy equipment, and so now we're over 10 years old and most of that equipment is not operable. And so what we decided to do was put a little money aside to start replacing some of that equipment, and with the commercial equipment. And so we did budget for gym equipment. The other portion of the ambulance, so we have another ambulance, separate ambulance than the one the council's budget for. These are remaining ARPA funds, and this, actually this is already it's been delivered and actually already been spent, is $265,000. Now we bought an ATV, a concrete grinder, a trailer. We have to pay for our portion of the hike and bike trail, which is $912,000. We did get a grant of 1.2. A lawnmower, a merry-go-round, veterans monument, and pool plaster. Now what will happen is that you did receive the pool grant, so that $75,000 set aside for this will move over to that kind of bank of money in order to go towards that pool grant. And so if you just remove the hike and bike trail and you kind of take that out of the mix, the council spent $439,000 on capital. And so, meat and potatoes, capital fund reserve, what is it? How do we earn it? Why do we even have it? Right? Like my emoji? All right. So, what is a capital fund reserve? So, capital reserve has 2 kinds of definitions. The first definition is it's a dedicated savings account that we can use in times of emergency. If for whatever reason our projected revenue that comes in doesn't come in, HEB gets a tornado and the tornado just hits HEB, you're going to be hurting. We don't have that sales tax, and so we would need to take money from your general fund reserve in order to cover your expenditures for that year, because that was not a planned scenario that we planned on for that year. So it's there to help for emergencies. There's a big and to that. What else is your reserve fund used for? Well, it's also a dedicated savings fund to use for large, planned public infrastructure projects. It covers your roads, your buildings, any major equipment that aren't covered by your annual budget. And so we use it over time for specific purposes in order to meet those capital needs. And so how do we earn this money? How do we grow that savings account, right? You can do it by a planned approach. And so some cities say, hey, we get X amount of revenue, we want to make sure that 3%, 5%, 10% of that revenue coming in is going to be automatically put into our reserve account. Some cities say we're going to do a flat amount. And that's what the council kind of did this year. They put aside and set aside $200,000 for an ambulance, $200,000 for a pool, and $75,000 for SCADA equipment. So they set that money aside, $475,000 this year, to go towards those capital needs. The other way that you earn capital money is through what we call a budget surplus. So how do you get a budget surplus? Well, your revenues come in more than what we projected. So for those of you that were here around COVID, right after the COVID started coming off, houses started selling for a lot of money. 100,000 over asking, 50,000 for over asking. So the city saw that in the revenue side and said, well, we're getting all this extra revenue come in, and so that is also a surplus. That money came in more than we projected, and so then that would go into your reserve fund. The council at that time saw that extra money coming in and decided to lower your property tax during that time. And so the other way that you have a budget surplus is through expenditures. Expenditures are lower than anticipated. So your project cost, you may say, oh, project may cost $2 million, and say it comes in at 1.5. Well, that extra money for that project, they don't give it to me as a bonus, right? We get that money and we roll it over into your reserve fund. Or election happens in May. We get new council members on board and they say, we don't want to do the project. We don't want to do X, Y, Z. Stop doing that project. And so that money, again, doesn't go anywhere other than it rolls over into your capital fund reserve. And so, or your departments, like your police and your fire, don't spend what they anticipated to spend. Maybe they don't use as much gas as they thought. Maybe they don't buy, the chief likes to buy pens. Maybe they only bought 2 pens instead of 5 pens. They save on their operating expense. The big one, though, if you remember that pie chart at the beginning, right? That pie chart, the biggest piece of that was what? Personnel. So the biggest times when we have savings in your budget, what is that going to be? Personnel. And so your personnel, your employee turnover rate, or what has since been dubbed vacancy savings, but don't tell them to count that because that's not a real accounting term. But it is a common, I hear people, it's called employee turnover. So we call it unfilled positions or vacancy savings. And so what happened with the city of Leon Valley around 2005, we had some administrators say, hey, we can't balance the budget. How are we going to balance this budget? And so what they decided to do was budget for employee turnover. And it started off really small. It started off around 3%. And so it's kind of hard to track because the way that they did it, they didn't put it as a separate line item in your budget. They didn't say, we're taking off as an expenditure X amount of dollars from personnel. They basically did it in a spreadsheet and said your personnel is going to cost $3 million. We're going to take 3% of that. And so what actually one of the presentations was your personnel minus the 3% into your budget. But it was never really tracked in your budget as a separate line item. And so it's kind of hard for me to track, but I saw a couple of presentations or a couple of spreadsheets that had the personnel turnover from 3% all the way up to 10%. And so they were doing that to balance the budget. And so there are pros and cons to this method. I'm not going to deem that administrator for doing it. You can lessen your surplus, right? You're not going to have that overage amount, and so you can lessen the surplus, and you're balancing a budget. So it looks really good on paper. The cons to it from working as the HR director for so long, it was essentially a hiring freeze. And it caused us to be short-staffed sometimes. And so what the theory is about budgeting this way is that it would happen naturally. You expect that at the end of the year, you'll hit this amount based on the administrator's projections. But what actually happens is you as the administrator get nervous, right? You're like, we have to hit these numbers. We told the council that we were going to have a 3% turnover, 5% turnover. So what they do is they hold those positions. So when a position becomes vacant that year, you're not filling it. You want to make sure that you hit that number. And so that's kind of what started to happen. And the city administrator at the time said, we need to stop doing this. It's getting really bad. We need to stop doing this. The policy was we couldn't even advertise for a position for 3 months, and then it went to 4 months, and then at one point we got close to 6 months. And so the manager at the time was like, we need to figure out what to do. And so they stopped doing it. And so we stopped budgeting for vacancy savings. And so when you stop budgeting for vacancy savings, if you do have employee turnover, you're gonna have leftover money in your personnel services. You are. And so the rule of thumb, I saw Mr. Bradshaw come in, his favorite line was, if you give it to them, they're gonna spend it. And so he wasn't wrong. City administrators in 2014, let's see here. Oh man, it jumped a little bit. Hold on, go back to that. In 2014 timeframe, started budgeting. Well, June and July would come, and what would happen? The city administrators would say, oh my God, the council's not gonna give us enough money, and so we need to hurry up and spend it. And so if you had employee turnover, they would do that. They would run and they would go spend it. I came along and said, we don't operate that way. They're putting faith in us that we're gonna budget it, we're gonna take that money, we're gonna put it back where it needs to go. And so that's what I started doing. And so we take a look at 2024, your CAFR. We just got the 25 CAFR, and so I was gonna update all these charts, but I didn't have time. That on Thursday, I don't know, like at 7 o'clock. And so I didn't update these numbers. So we're gonna go off the 24. And so in 24, you had $4 million, $4.3 million of what we call unspent funds. And if you take a look at your law enforcement there, that $395,000, the majority of that is personnel. And so if you take a look at this chart though, but that's not your only unspent funds. The majority of that was in your parks. Well, why was it so high in parks? That's your hike and bike trail. So it's kind of like an error, like not an error, but it's budgeted in there. So it's kind of a little bit of a discrepancy in the sense that if you take the hike and bike trail out, it would be heavier on personnel costs, right? So that's your contractual. And so I did it in different ways. And so we look at this bar chart, and the blue is personnel. And you can see you have a little bit of blue in law enforcement, which is the majority of their unspent funds. But you also have a little bit of blue in public works. But what's the big one you see? It's capital. It's your purple line. It's your big projects that maybe the staff didn't finish that year. It's not just hike and bike. We had other things that happened. And so again, I like to show you in different ways. Again, purple, contractual. It's all your contractual projects, followed by your personnel. And so again, you take a look at your unspent funds. You have $4.3 million left over. The city's reserve fund increases by $4 million. Can somebody answer that question? Oh, do you think that $4 million goes into your reserve fund?
Answer no.
There you go. No. That $4 million doesn't go into your reserve fund. Why? Because we have rollover projects. Your hike and bike being the big one. Right? That $912 million had to be rolled over. And we also have, these aren't,
Not million, thousand.
millions, sorry.
You said million.
Oh, sorry, 912,000, sorry. Ooh, 900 million.
Yeah.
No, it's almost $1 million. Sorry, 912,000. But we had some unfinished projects in the fire department. These are just examples. There was a few other rollovers. But I just put over the highlights. And your master plan that we're getting into this year. And so, let's take a look at your history. I know it's hard to read, hopefully you can see it on your thing. I did update the ending fund balance for FY25, and you got roughly $8.3 million at the end of FY25. But I wanted you to take a look at this chart. And so, I'm going to defer back to Mr. Bradshaw, like I said, you give it to them, they're going to spend it. So he's not wrong. If you take a look at 2014, when we stopped doing it, our average reserve fund was sitting at $30 million. And in 2021, I'm not going to say he became your city manager, but your reserve fund on average increased roughly $5 million. And you take a look at your net change has also increased a lot. And some of that's due, we had a lot of economic different things happen over that time. We had COVID, we had increase in property tax, other things that happened. But the one thing I was dedicated to was proving Mr. Bradshaw wrong. Was to make sure that just because they gave it to us, we just didn't spend it. I didn't run out and go buy new stuff, police cars, computers, screens. We didn't fix the mic here in the conference. So we made sure that we are putting that money into your reserve fund. And so there is this magic number that keeps floating around, and it's $3 million. You only need $3 million in your reserve fund. Like, that's all you need. You should be spending that money. You're raising taxes and you have all this money sitting over there. Where did that $3 million come from? Well, in order for you to have emergency revenue projections that aren't met, GFOA recommends that you have roughly 2 months in order to meet those emergency funds. We at the time decided we were gonna save 3 months worth. The city of Leon Valley has over 6 months sitting there. And so I was like, I could not dictate, like, I kept hearing, you only need 3 million, so I'm like, man, so sure enough, I started digging. And I made it back all the way to Word Perfect days, and found some old presentations, and you had a city manager that was a statistician in the late 90s. And he was a governor, 3-bird colonel, and he was really big in numbers, budgeting. Shout out to Hank Grumman if he's watching from home. And so he did a budget projection for y'all back then. And so, do you think that your equipment that you spent in 1998, I can get the same dump truck in 2026 for the same cost?
Yeah.
No, right? And so back then, he did a projection of a course of 10 years. Actually, it was probably more like 8. And he said, hey, these are all our future capital needs. In order for us to meet that, and in order for you to satisfy the emergency part of your budget, you only need 3 million. Well, since then, you've had about 7 city managers, and they stuck with that 3 million gold nugget. And so, if you wanted just to keep your reserve fund at the 3-month mark, just to cover for emergencies, you wouldn't even need 3 million, you would need closer to 4. And so, if you take a look, as a 2.5, right, so that's the new capital numbers, your capital fund reserve was 677, I'm sorry, 6,766,000, and your future capital purchases, the items that we just talked about, your ambulance, your pool, was 475, and then you have an emergency fund. That emergency fund is dedicated in your CAFR for natural disasters. But all in all, if this is the only thing you want to worry about is just emergencies, is 8.4 million. I'm thinking of his hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
Could you just please explain the word CAFR?
Yeah, it's your, hold on, your comprehensive annual, it's ACT for now, it's not CAFR. Annual Comprehensive Financial Statement. There you go, see, I did it all by myself. Okay. And so, in your audit, it's dedicated in your audit, your financials, as dedicated to your natural disasters. And so you have 8.4. If tornado comes out, we're going to use tornado now because that's where we're at. And took out Walgreens and H-E-B and Hobby Lobby, and the city needed to survive. We would dig into our reserve fund to cover that. But is emergency services the only reason you build your capital reserve fund? Somebody want to answer? No. No, I feel so good. No, you're absolutely right. No, the other reason we have it is for your future needs. And so, I'm going to tell you, don't freak out when I show you this chart, so don't freak out. And so, like I said, I got your ACFR on Thursday, and you have your ending fund balance. So you remember that $8 million you had. The council spent about $1 million in 26. You had $8 million ending in 25. You spent a little bit over $1 million in your capital. And so you're left with $7.2 million sitting in your capital reserve fund. And so if you take a look, and I'm going to break it down, don't worry. If you have $7.2 million and you bought everything the city staff said that we need over the course of the next 10 years, you go broke in FY32, right? And so this is kind of similar to what Hank used to do, right? But I tell you don't freak out because your capital plan is just that, it's a plan. It's not set in stone. You can move things from year to year. And so you'll see in this first year, you see things like library AC repair. Well, we put it in somewhere, it has to live somewhere, because what was happening was we had a lot of surprises here with the city. Nobody was planning for replacing the roof or the AC or the playground equipment. We weren't budgeting for any of that. And so throughout the year, we have a lot of surprises. And so what would happen is you would see a lot more budget adjustments throughout the year. And so little by little, we keep dipping into the savings account. And if you've ever done that before, you look at the end of the day and you're like, I didn't spend all that money. Yes, I did. I did spend all that money. And so, you take a look at FY '27, and so the highlighted amounts are the items that council has already set aside money for. So that $475,000 we talked about is sitting in that 4.2 already. So in order, because the chart looked really busy, so I was gonna break it down, but that 475,000 is in there, it's dedicated on our side, but it's in there, and so I highlighted those items. And so you'll see there's the SCADA equipment in FY '28. And so that blacked out portion is that 7.2, right? So it just goes down to 4.2. And so you continue to move on, here's 29. These are other equipment pieces. But you'll see things like your Silo Park Pavilion, maybe Old Mill Playscape, and maybe the time comes and they're still in good condition. But if you don't put them or program them into your capital, they don't get addressed. They get overlooked for years and years and years, and then what ends up happening is I get calls from y'all. The trail is coming undone. The kids they're getting scraped on the back of their leg on the slide. The swing isn't swinging. The merry-go-round is falling apart. And so, it doesn't go round and round anymore. And so at 30-31, you're still looking good. At 30-32, that's when we start kind of seeing a decline in your reserve. The other thing I need to point out is what I also did in this chart is I added 300,000. Now that's a conservative estimate. And so if you have every year, we don't fill all the positions or we don't finish that project, and there's $300,000 left over in that year, it would go into your reserve. So in order to be as transparent as I could, we said every year we're gonna add 300,000 in your reserve. And so sometimes it may be more, sometimes it may be a little bit less, but I wanted y'all to see, hey, I programmed that we're gonna be putting money each year into your reserve account. And so even with putting 300,000 in every year, you start seeing a deficit in FY32. And so, and again though, that's if you buy everything we said. Not everything is gonna go out. You know, I would love to say, my name's Crystal, but I'm not a crystal ball. It's kind of a joke, right? And so I can't actually project that the library AC is going to go out that year, or that the server is going to go kaput or something like that. And so we try really hard to make sure that it lives, we call it lives in a place, right? It lives somewhere so it's not forgotten. And so we go through the year and we end in FY26. The other thing is to pay attention, but you have fire trucks that are going to come up at some point, right? They've got to be replaced. You have one in FY36. And then you have one in FY32. There it is. And so they're two separate trucks. And so you have to make sure that you project for that. And I'll go over a little bit why just a little bit. So again, I tell you, don't freak out because this chart's going to go around. And the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to say the city manager put everything in there. We're not going to spend it all. She's trying to get you scared. Incite fear, and so we can spend everything down to the $3 million. I'm not trying to do that. I just wanted to make sure that it lives somewhere. And so what I did was what we call selective purchasing, right? So that $7 million, I say, okay, what if we spend $800,000 a year in capital? So we say we're going to put $500,000 towards some hard costs, right? Buying that, maybe a dump truck, buying a police car, whatever it is. And the other $300,000 we're going to do dedicated to a future fire truck. So we set aside even $200,000 a year. In FY32, when that happens, you have $1.2 million dedicated to purchase that $1.5 million fire truck. And so, again, this is just selective purchasing. It's a scenario. Eventually, or if that's how it wants to be done, the council every year when they adopt it, it's a policy decision. They're the ones that will make that decision on how much money is spent in capital that year. And they get to vote on the capital every single year. But it's my job to make sure that I prepare a budget and think in the future for them. And so that way they're prepared when they make this vote once a year. And so if we put in the $3 million that y'all were saving, you would go broke in FY29 in the same kind of scenario. So in 2 years, just buying what we say we needed to buy, you'd run out of money in FY29. Under the same scenario with the $800,000, and remember, still adding the $300,000 every year, if you kept $3 million there, it buys you another year. You go broke in FY30. And so my point to this kind of slideshow is to show you $3 million was not enough to support you over future needs. And what was happening was, you had $3 million in the budget, and the staff would come and present their capital. And so we had, where's David at? David remember this. We had public works trucks with no AC. We had guys making handmade trailers. We had, one truck had, like, I don't know, they built like a thing underneath the seat to stabilize it. We had tape around, a center console. And so some of these vehicles were becoming unsafe. They were making, and kudos to the public works guys, they have been pretty innovative and making some equipment to make themselves work in order to get the stuff done for y'all. But it does at some point become a safety hazard. We had police vehicles with over 150 to 200,000 miles on it, and for some people, I mean, my car has 174,000 miles on it. So, but they drive their vehicles, they are on 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and what was happening because we weren't budgeting for new cars, the maintenance on those vehicles were costing more than the vehicle was worth. And so we need to make sure we have a replacement plan for your police vehicles and your fire vehicles. And so other things to consider, and this is what you will consider later on during next year. We have a few items that don't live in your capital, but they're part of the community's discussion. And so the police department property room needs to be a big topic of conversation. We're running out of room. And if you remember in my annual report update, I told you we have, property room is 100% compliant, but we were only able to destroy 3 things last year, just 3. And so we're required to keep evidence. And so we have one of our famous murders that just hit the news not too long ago, but it was a 1980s murder. And so they paid us and asked us for the evidence in that murder case. We had to be able to provide it. And so we have to be able to turn it over. Until the case is completely closed, we're not allowed to destroy it. So if the defendant continues to have appeals, we have to hold that evidence. And we need to hold it appropriately. There's a chain of command, chain of process, and so you can lose a case, a guilty person can be set free, so it's very important for us to maintain that evidence safely and properly. And so we're running out of space in the police department for that. And so we're estimating 1.7 million to be able to do that. Public Works building has been a topic for how long, Owen? How long have we done Public Works?
I think it's 2012.
2012! So again, these are some items that don't live in their capital. They are capital needs, and so we do need to prioritize them. And at some point, we're going to need to figure out a way to fund some of these items, right? And then these are just other large expenses. I like them to live. Just showing them. We do have other large expenses that aren't capital, but I mean the staff, because if we have director switch over, that's how things fall off. So I like them to live in a plan. All right, so we do have other funds, right? And so we have something called assigned funds. We have assigned funds, and assigned funds are dedicated by the city council via ordinance. So you have economic development and your tree mitigation fund. And the council dictates to me and the staff how those monies can be spent. So your tree mitigation can only be spent on replacing of trees. And your economic development should be economic and community development initiatives. But then you have other things called restricted funds. And those restricted funds are governed by either the state or the federal government, and they tell us how we can spend those funds. And so, your crime control prevention district, right? People see that and they say, oh, you have $818,000 sitting over there. Move 3 police over there, free up the general fund, and you don't have to raise property tax. Well, what happens when I pull the money out of that 818, if I take 3 police officers and say I'm going to use that money to pay for those officers? I can do that year 1. I can maybe get away with it year 2, but by year 3, there's no more money. So then what happens? It has to be moved over into general fund. Yes, sir.
Is that a replenishing fund every $20,000 a month?
Yes, but it covers your operating that's already in there. So you have a balanced budget in your, crime control prevention has its own annual budget. And then the council votes on that every year. And so you currently, right now, I didn't add the whole entire budget in here, but your operating in that fund matches your expenditures. We didn't really have a whole lot left over last year because we do pay for police out of that fund already. And so you pay for your assistant police chief, you pay for a sergeant out of there, and I think one patrol officer. And then we buy other stuff out of there. We try to shift some money over there, and we pay for other operating expenses. So you're pretty balanced in that fund.
Dr. Caldera, how did it grow then to 812?
So what I typically try to do is, when we're looking at police in particular, because they have funds like red light camera, crime control, my focus was when we try to fill positions to kind of spread it out. And so when we have a patrol officer position come available, we look, do we fill it in the general fund, do we fill it in crime control, or do we fill it in red light cameras? And so red light cameras is getting a little iffy, so if I try to fill a position, I may fill it in crime control, or I may fill it in the general fund. And so sometimes I was mostly trying to hit your red light camera, so we have vacancies, we were putting them in the red light camera fund, and so we were growing really your crime control fund at that time. And so it's just a matter of where you fill your positions and when. And so we try to spread it out to make sure all your funds are healthy funds, right? I don't try to make it or weight it on one side over another. We just try to balance that throughout the year. Your red light camera fund is a really good example. If you take a look at that first column, you'll see that there's $944,000 that was sitting there in 2024. Well, this is a perfect example of why you build your reserve fund. And so we have police sitting over there. And last year, our revenue projections were a big fat miss. And people did not pay their red light camera tickets. And so we were short in that fund. And so what were we able to do? We were able to use that $944,000 you had in that reserve fund in order to cover the shortfall. Remember, that's one of the ways that you use your money that when you have saved in your savings to cover shortfalls. And so what happened was people said, I'm not paying my red light camera ticket, boycotting, not gonna happen, and we didn't hit our production. So we took, click for me, there it is, oops, back. $310,000 from that $944 in order to cover that shortfall. And so that $310,000 didn't have to come from your general fund reserve. If we didn't have that fund sitting there, you would have had to take $310,000 from your general fund reserve and move it over to red light cameras to cover the deficit there, right? And so again, why do we have it? It gives us a plan. It limits surprises. Let me talk about some surprises, some examples, right? Some Leon Valley examples. So the city council in 2008 was struck with a really big problem. They had a water well that was about to collapse. It wasn't funded for. It wasn't in your enterprise fund, the state general fund, but it wasn't managed. It didn't live anywhere. We didn't budget for future infrastructure. It wasn't taken into consideration. And so they said, hey, we have to replace the water well. So they went out for a certificate of obligation, which is a bond.
Wasn't that 2015?
Your water well? Yeah. It's listed on your debt as a, oh wait.
Oh, I thought it was 2015 when Hank was here. Yeah.
I don't know, it's showing on our debt, so, but maybe I don't know. Either way, y'all didn't budget for it, whether it was 08 or 2015. Y'all didn't plan for that event to happen. And so we had to go out for a certificate of obligation. And for those of you that don't know, not all of y'all are on Leon Valley Water. So the entire city had to pay the property tax for that water well. The other thing that happened was in 2009, y'all never budgeted for a fire truck. Never was taken into consideration. Your fire chief at the time said, can't fix the fire truck anymore, we're done. It's not turned on. And we need a fire truck, ASAP. And so in 2008, you had you go back and look at that chart, you had $2.7 million. Could you cover $1 million fire truck? No. So what they had to do was go out for a certificate of obligation in 2009 for a fire truck. Guess what? That fire truck, we don't have it anymore. Doesn't work, not operable. Why? Because we're in 2026. Are you still paying on that fire truck? Yep. And so, in your debt service, you have currently your tax rate is 0.54, your maintenance and operations is 0.49. And your debt service is for your fire truck, the water well, and City Hall. Y'all did a bond for City Hall back in 2014. And so bonds do have their place. I don't give bonds a bad name. They do have their place. We use them for big, maybe huge street projects if you want to do a building. But you just have to remember that does impact your property tax rate. it's gonna go up. And so the goal for me at least is to help get your debt service down as much as we can. And so you can issue more bonds to do the street reconstruct, or if you wanna do the public works building, and your property tax isn't gonna be impacted so much, right? It becomes almost a wash.
Crystal, certificates of obligation do not have to be voted upon.
Correct.
City.
So, I mean, I can go over, you can do a whole bond presentation, but
I just want-
certificate of obligations don't come to y'all to vote. The council just votes and that's it. And so those are typically, they use them more for emergencies. Your city hall though wasn't done by certificate of obligation, it was done by a municipal bond and y'all voted on that bond. So what am I hearing? So I've been getting lots of, I heard we had $9 million. So why did our tax rate go up? I have $9 million money piled in silver. Why are your property taxes going up? I mean, I got calls for 2 days there, and I'm like, where's this coming from? Okay, so I said, I think this is what happened. The council in July started asking me what the projected ending fund balance was going to be for FY25. And I said, no, we don't have CAFR, I don't like to give you unaudited numbers, and this is one of the reasons I don't like to do that, because then rumors get spread. But I said, not a problem, we'll go ahead, we'll do it, we'll give you some unaudited numbers, and we did. We said, there you go. Your new ending fund balance, which is your unassigned, is about $8 million. We came in close, it came in at 8.3, so you ended up having more. And then your emergency fund is 1.2. So what I think happened was people took this chart and said we have $9 million. But that 1.2 is already committed. And that 8 million, what ended up happening is the council's still in discussion in the budget for FY26 when this chart came out. So I had no idea what the council was going to dedicate towards capital. So come in September, the council votes on the budget and we have a new ending fund balance, right? Because the city council voted for new capital. You have $1 million in FY26 taken off of that $8 million, right? And you have 7.2, we just went over that. So you don't have 9 million, you have 7.2. The other place I think it could have come from is the actual capital itself. People go to this page and automatically pull that 9.4. But if you actually look what's in that 9.4, you have PEG channel funds. Well, your PEG channel fund can only be used for your public access channel. This equipment, purchase, PEG funds, right? That's in a live stream on your channel. So all of those dedicated fund and assigned funds are in that 9 million. So I think that that's maybe another place that rumor could have started, but you really don't have $9 million, you have 7.2. So you're gonna spread a rumor, it's 7.2. Okay. The other thing that we've been hearing, you have 17 million, lower our tax rate, we have $17 million. And I was like, whoa, really? Where did you pick it up? And so, I heard 17 million. And so let me explain. What I think happened, I don't know this to be true, is all of those restricted funds were added up, including your unassigned fund, because it gets pretty close to 17 million. But those restricted funds can only be used for those intended purposes. I can't use them to buy firefighters. I can't use them, they're specific to those funds. Your police forfeiture fund, you have city over there, has, let me see, 900,000 over there. Those are for your HIDA. The HIDA people that came in, well, that money doesn't come in every year in the same amount. Sometimes we get $1 million, sometimes I get $2. It depends on what has finished in the judicial system. So we do make a little bit of money here. And we use them to buy their police cars, all their undercover gear. That's what supports those staff people. The other big thing to consider, and that's on that list from before, is that police radios are going to come up. And we're estimating that to be a little bit over $1 million. Now, the county last time helped us, but our responsibility was still closer to $300,000. And so we take a look at your crime control or your red light camera, and you see those funds there. That's my kind of anticipation of like, these radios are going to come up, and we can't pay for them all out of there, but you can pay for a percentage of that stuff out of there when that time comes. Because it's coming, it'll come in the next couple of years, and you'll see that on one of the previous charts that I showed you. But you can certainly, anytime we come up and it's the new year, the council knows, and the police ask for a police car, I'm like, okay, do you have to hit general fund reserve? No, let's move it in crime control. Let's move it over to the red light camera. So we do look at that every single year when we take a look at your capital plan. And so why don't we just use reserve funds to decrease your tax rate? Well, in short answer, it's it's a short-term solvent but it causes a long-term problem, right? Because you're not actually paying for what you're using. You're taking your reserve fund to cover the current cost. And so if you take a look at your family budget, right? You don't use your savings account to pay for your groceries or your electric or your gas, but you may use it if you lost your job, if you need to replace your roof, right? That's the time you use your reserve funds to cover those kinds of shortfalls. So why don't you use it? You have ongoing operating costs. Your budget should be solvent. And so your reserve fund, if you use your reserve fund to cover your operating, you'll be able to do it. Your taxes will stay low. Year 2, it's gonna get a little bit smaller. And year 3, you're eventually gonna run out and you're gonna have to pay the piper. So you're gonna have to either increase your property tax or the other option is cut positions. You cut positions. And so it hides the real cost, makes your budget look balanced when it's not, and it's risky. Your city appears to be solvent when it's not, future councils inherit a problem, and residents kind of lose trust because we're having this conversation. Because I'm sure some of y'all didn't know some of the stuff that's happened in the past, right? It also impacts your credit rating. The city borrows money when we do go out for bonds, and it can drop your credit rating, your interest rates can go up, projects end up costing more in the long term. And so the city of Leon Valley has a really good credit rating score. And so when we do go out for a bond, we keep our interest pretty low when we have to. And so it's good to know that's kind of where we're sitting at. And so I always get asked, Dr. Caldera, are you sure? Are you sure we can't use that reserve fund? How do you know? How do you know that you can't use your reserve fund to cover your operating expense and that this is going to happen? Well, there's lots of examples. City of Chicago, and I'm using big cities. There are a lot of small municipality examples, but I'm not going to run my sister cities through the mud. We're going to use I minded it to big cities, so we'll do big cities. Chicago, Illinois did it, and their Fitch rating had to drop. They went out, they were using their reserve fund to cover their operating expense, and they had to be downgraded in their bond, which means when they went out to borrow money, they paid a higher interest rate. City of California dropped their reserve fund from $20 million to $9.9 million, and their auditors came down on them and said, identified this city as a high risk, high financial risk, and warned of potential cuts to service or long-term instability of trends continuing. And the biggest notable one that you learn when you get your MPA is the city of New York. In the 1970s, the city of New York continued to use it so much that they had to ask the federal government to intervene and cover for them. So these are big examples. And they're like, but Dr. Caldera, are you really sure? Because the city of Houston just did it. The city of Houston used $107 million in their $7 billion budget to offset the cost. So the city of Houston knows more than you, Doctor. They're a huge city. They have 100 people, a lot smarter people than you. Absolutely, they absolutely do. But technically, their balanced budget masks a structural defect. And so their own mayor came out and said, we're going broke. Their mayor came out publicly and said, we're going broke. Why? Because he understands. He understands that they're running out of cash if they continue to use their reserve fund to cover operating expenses. And so you don't want to do that. So I'm going to conclude my presentation. City reserve funds, they're not extra money. It's not unused money. It's not overtaxation. It is used for emergencies, but it's also used for you to project your future needs. It helps your daily operations. It keeps your long-term financial risk low, and it avoids crises for tomorrow. Yes, sir.
All right.
Well, wait. Oh, hold on. Wait, yeah. Okay. Would you please come to the mic, to the yes. So everybody can hear your question or comment. Yeah. Thank you and welcome.
Good morning, City of Leon Valley.
It's a little, yeah.
I am former council rep, and yes, I was the one who said if they have it, they'll spend it. And thank you, Dr. Caldera, for proving me wrong on at least some of it.
Some of it.
But my question is, our reserve fund, of course, it goes up. The $3 million was the bogey that everybody had out there, how much money we needed to have in our reserves for 3 months of operating, 2 or 3 months of operating expenses.
Yeah.
Paid that. But now it's 1.267. And I just want to understand where that came from. That came from adding up, like, all our expenses for a month. Is that?
I'm sorry.
1.267 thousand. Or sorry.
Oh, yeah, so.
$1,267,000.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's our monthly operating expenses.
So, no, it's not. You take your annual operating revenue that come in and you divide that over 12, because your revenue comes in at different fluctuations.
So why would you count the revenue instead of your expenses?
For what?
This is our reserve
Right.
that we need for months. And if I were to do a budget and say, how much do I need for my household income, I would take my utilities, my mortgage, my car payment, my gas, all that stuff, and I would add up my expenses, my needs, and say, that's what I need for 3 months. I wouldn't say, well, how much do I make, and I'm gonna divide that.
No, so that's how, my explanation, so you weren't here for that portion. But that's how the city used to do it, that's how the 3 million came to existence. $3 million, because now your 1.2 in emergency fund, it used to sit at $1 million for eons and eons and eons. And we said that $1 million in emergency fund, if you had a natural disaster, wouldn't cover a natural disaster, right? And so that 1.2, I think, is supposed to simplify, or not supposed to, but that 1.2 for your natural disasters, all the council did was add 250,000 to that last year. And so, is it now? Is that what you need? They would have to determine that when we have the CAFR and we get that on the 17th. So that $1.2 million is just if you had a natural disaster happen, that's where that 1.2 came from. But for years and years and years, you only had $1 million sitting there. But
Well, I'm talking, this is we would need.
So what I was saying, if they use the same formula that they used to come up with the 3 million, they took your revenue. It was your revenue at the time.
That seems incorrect. I don't know how whether that's the way they did it or not, that seems incorrect.
Right, so if you heard my explanation for that was the history. And so you took the 3 million back when they started doing it, they took your revenue cost and divided that revenue over 12 months. I'm saying if you use that same methodology today, that would be 3.8 now.
Right.
But I'm not saying that you need 3.8 now. I'm saying if you use the same methodology, I was trying to explain that it was incorrect the way they did it before.
Right, I get that. So, okay, so I think that's, number one, that's incorrect. Number two, when we say, well, we only have, 7.2 million, and all this other stuff in other funds, that's dedicated. So you can't use that. Well, if you're calculating this on your expenses, that other stuff, it's like you're double counting. It's like if I took my budget and I said, I've got, my mortgage, I've got my insurance, I've got my car payment, I've got utilities, my electric, my gas, whatever, and this is how much I have to spend per month. Oh, but I have, $10,000 that I overpaid in my utility fund that I don't have to pay. And I already do my monthly budget and say how much 3 months, I wouldn't have to count my utilities again because I have a bunch of money sitting there. So some of these other funds, if you're double counting how much you're having to spend in reserves, that money that's there would cover a certain number of months. So this needs to be redone, not based on revenue, but based on expense.
So again, I was trying to explain how that was done incorrectly back then. We don't do that now, right? So what I was trying to express there, again, through my presentation, and so when I do a PowerPoint that you're printing out, unfortunately, if you're not here for the actual presentation piece of it, you're gonna miss what I said. So I was trying to say that what was counted back then was done incorrectly, so that's that chart. That the way you should be looking at it now is you gotta take everything that you need into account. Each of those restricted funds have their own budget. You're a council member, so all of those funds, operating, revenue, and expenditures are accounted for on separate funds. Today's conversation was dealing with our current capital fund budget, and you have 7.2 million. If the council doesn't want to keep 7.2 million, they have the ability to spend that money. They have the ability to spend, we presented the budget 11 times last year.
I get that, but my whole point is that you said, these slides that said, oh, we have $9 million excess. No, we don't, because we have Well, it really does look like we do have quite a bit of excess. Maybe not be 9 million, but it's quite a bit of excess funds, and thank you for not spending it all. So that's all.
So again, council makes a decision on how they want to use their funds. I presented the budget 11 times last year. The public can come out and speak all the time. All of those restricted funds have their own individual budget. But for the sake of time, I didn't go through every single one of those budgets, because most of those budgets are balanced almost to the penny. Everything coming in is expended. Where you're gonna have savings, just like you do in your general fund, is probably gonna be on your personnel side of things. And so you build those fund balances, because in that chart, you'll see a police car, right? Well, in that fiscal year, if we can, we'll buy that police car in a different fund, right? And so you're not gonna use all $2 million in FY '27 as projected on that chart. You're gonna hopefully find other funds to be able to help offset that in the general fund. That's the goal. But you don't have, the biggest fund that you have money in savings is your general fund. Those other funds at the most is $1 million. You don't have an excess of a bunch of savings in those restricted funds. And so every time we present those dollars to the council, we move things. I mean, last year we had a dump truck we wanted to buy. We found that the enterprise fund was going to be able to use a good portion of that dump truck. And so when they decided that they could do that, then we shifted that dump truck over to your enterprise fund. And so that does happen every time we have the conversation on the budget.
Now, I'm Darby Riley. The restricted funds issues what bothers me, because it's $7 million that are given for the red light camera and other matters. They're for, say, police, they're for street. I'm saying, why don't we use these funds instead of piling them up?
So you do use them?
Well, we're not using them, they need to be zeroed out. They don't need to be piled up. We don't need savings in street maintenance. We have $20,000 a month for street maintenance.
Okay.
So in other words, you use the funds that you have instead of creating more savings accounts. That's my view. I was on the council for 8 years back in the 80s. We didn't pile up money. If you tax people, you use that money to run the government. You don't create savings accounts.
Yeah. So again, fund balances, again, protect you for the future, right? You have, so your street maintenance, that dollar that's sitting there, we have three big projects coming on, and so that money is going to be there. What ended up happening with your street maintenance fund is we went through a street ranking process, and so we didn't spend funds in that over a course of a year and a half. And so David can tell you we now have like 2 or 3 major projects going on, and so those reserve funds will almost dwindle quite substantially this year. But that's for slurry filling your streets. I can't use that to pay for public works employees. I can't use that to buy a police car. That is simply to maintain your streets. And so we went through a planning process, and so we didn't use those funds to slurry fill the streets because I felt like we were responding based on people's calls. So I get a call, Mr. Crystal, our street's bumpy. And so that's how we were doing it. We go over there, we slurry the street. There was no actual plan in place. And so we took some time out to get an actual plan in place. If you take a look at your red light cameras, I gave you the example of that. Had you not had those funds sitting there, you would have had to take that $310,000 from your general fund reserve in order to get that budget to balance. The other portion of that to consider is your red light cameras is going away in 2037. You're going to have to move the people that you pay out of your red light camera fund over into your general fund. That's going to be a big task for this council in the upcoming year. And I've tried 2 or 3 years in a row to already start moving people out of your red light camera fund over into your general fund. And the council has been unable to do that because they didn't have enough revenue coming in to offset the expenses of being able to do that. And so, again, the council gets presented this budget. I say, okay, you have this money available. This is what's left over. They're getting the ACFR on the 17th. Debbie will go over all of those fund balances. She'll go over how those funds can be used. And if there's anything that can offset in the general fund and move them over into your restricted funds, then we certainly will do that. But to say zero them out and not plan for those funds in the future, you really can't do that. You have exposure guys that need equipment, that money doesn't come in the same amount every year. You have pay channel funds that can only be used for public access channel. I can't move anything over there. You have your child safety. That can only be used for your school crossing guards. Your LEOS grant can only be used to pay for training for the officers. That's it. those restricted funds are dedicated. There's not a whole lot I can move from general fund over into those reserve funds. So if I zero them out, I can zero out your Leo's fund, we almost do every year, but we pay for officer training in those funds. You saw the annual report I gave you, that's your officers and that's your peace officers. So when you look at those restricted funds, they are dedicated to certain things. I can't, the federal government and state dictate how I spend those dollars. And so, if I could use all that money and move it over to your operating or zero all those funds to make your funds balance, great, we have public works building vote already. You know, that's been on the topic, we were trying to go for a month for that. And so unfortunately, those funds are dedicated funds. I can't just spend them. And so, you know,
Well, Sherry, would you come to the, would you come to the microphone? Because again, we are recording this on YouTube and peg channel, and thank you. Everybody can hear you. The small, thank you. Good morning, and welcome. So you gotta speak into the little mic, the little mic. Yeah, it's a little mic, yeah. There you go.
I think that this meeting has shown me personally is I can't equate my home budget and accounting with running the city. Things are very complicated. There's a lot of regulations and things on the books that prevent these decisions to be made. We're fortunate enough to have somebody that understands all this. But I have a question for the city council. How many of you are CPAs? We have one?
That's just one.
Because I think one of the biggest qualifications that I'm starting to get from this meeting is that a lot of the work of the city council is numbers. Crunching numbers and accounting, and so that's not my strongest suit. So I appreciate this presentation.
Thank you, Sherry.
But I think we need to remember that running the city and our own personal household finances are apples and oranges. You can't even begin to equate the two. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez, you're next. Just give it to the next person. Thank you, Sherry. We appreciate it. That's Sherry Vivier on Bridal Path.
Billy Martinez. One thing I have to say, being my years on city council, you learn a lot of stuff about stuff you never even thought about. And Ms. Caldera went over a lot of that in her presentation about the budget. But, you know, she did show the projections based on state money coming in. We do have, I don't know if you guys know it, we have about 500 new homes being built in Young Albany. Stop and think about that. Each house generates about $1,000 in tax revenue. So we, you know, if we wanted to go bankrupt in 2030 or 2036, something like that, we might as well become San Antonio. But with the future of these houses, we have a future for Young Valley. We can go and we can even, you know, all those 500 homes, they got to eat someplace. They're going to go to, you know, Butterburger, or they're going to go to McDonald's, or they're going to go someplace and eat. They're going to spend their money, and that's tax dollars coming in. So, you know, there is a future for Young Valley, and that's one thing the last council and the future, you know, the previous councils have done to keep our city growing and keep Leon Valley as Leon Valley and not San Antonio.
Dr. Caldera, when will we realize that increase in? That's going to take some time.
Yeah, it takes about 35, you know, and I told you this, you know, because we talk about projections, I like to have a data point, I don't just like to just speak. And so, excuse me, I was here for the 12,000 version, it took about 5 years for us to kind of realize that. But also that those new homes have more people, but more people require what? More city services. And so that's why it's some time that we don't have to replace streets or water infrastructure, but our police and fire do have to respond to those calls. So that's just important to keep in mind as well.
All right, Dave Gannon from Long House Court.
So my name is Dave, excuse me.
Good morning.
My name is Dave Gannon, and I currently serve as the chair for the Northside School District Citizens Bond Advisory Committee. as well as the chair of the board of directors, board of directors of the Fair Appraisal District. And I will tell you, the state of Texas requires both entities to keep 5 months reserve by state law. So the amount they're talking about here is far less than that. Municipalities operate under a different set of laws. But just to put in context, the state in its own regulations requires 5 months.
Thank you, appreciate that. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Molly. Good morning and welcome.
Yeah, again, I think the idea that government should run differently from a household is the problem. I mean, when you get into that mindset, where do we end up, right? I mean, money doesn't grow on trees, and this is going to be an unpopular thing to say, and I don't know if it's been mentioned, but how many of you guys here are under 65? I would say we're far outnumbered. So when you raise taxes, it's not property taxes, it's not affecting those over 65. And yet, who's represented here? I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying, if that's what you're wanting, think about how it's affecting the greater community. And how involved were you when you had a family and kids? It's a little hard to be, right? So, again, I'm not criticizing anyone, that's just the reality. So think about the greater community and how this Leon Valley is growing and the young families that are moving in. It's going to affect us. The other thing I'd say is, I was on the Capital Facilities Committee that was looking at potentially funding some of these projects when the interest rates would have favored us. And that got railroaded. I was on that committee. And some people that espoused for raising taxes and growing government without and continuing with these regulations to get in the way, they were the very people that railroaded these projects. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Collins.
Well, my name is Philip Campos. I'm one of the council members. I do want to recognize that Crystal Caldera has presented the budget to us in a very professional manner. She's given some solid advice every year that I've been on the council. This is the start of my third year back in May last year. And, you know, the budget is not these grandiose numbers that we're pulling out of the sky. She has got a line item for every expenditure that we're anticipating. There's no double counting of anything. And I can assure you that I would have thought, and I've thought different budget issues, but I've never thought that we're double counting. You know, to say, okay, we'll go ahead and defer things and not build for the future, like we did back in the 2014 or 2008 timeframe, where we're financing a fire truck that we no longer have, and we're still paying on the bond. That's criminal to me of that advice, and we're not getting that type of advice. And I'll tell you that everything that she's got is a deliberate plan that is presented to the council, every one of us, and we vote on it. Okay, it's not Crystal railroading anything that we're spending money on. It's us as a council that understand and vote to support whatever issue it is. And so, you know, when we talk about, okay, we need to lower the property tax rate, great, okay, but tell us, where do you want the cuts in services? Because that's the important thing. There's going to be cuts if you want the rate to go lower. So I'm not over 65, and I promised on the guys when I voted for the last property tax increase that I'll voluntarily pay on my home the increase in tax. And I did. Okay? So I'm telling you, when I'm voting, I'm recognizing issues that are good, not just for me, but for the entire community. And I think that's what's sometimes missing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I do appreciate that, Mr. Campos. Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Lionel?
There seems to be an issue with everybody on the council over 65, and the people who are younger are paying all the obligations. My retirement was set back in 1982, and has been twice revised since then. So we do not have the income or the availability to just go out and get an additional job or work more overtime or some way to get additional funds. They're set. Now, it's not everybody in the same boat, but our retirements are set, the rates are set when we retire. And the raises normally do not come. We get a Social Security annual rate. It's used up before we ever get it. Everybody in the world sees Social Security goes up. Okay, they raise the price of whatever they're selling. So this argument that just the younger people are paying, the older people have been here for several years, 65 to 20 years in my rearview mirror.
Thank you, Mr. Lionel. All right, anyone else? Yes, please, and if you'll state your name, and are you a Layout Valley resident as well?
Olalia Huggins, I am a Layout Valley resident. I live on Forest Crest.
Oh, good. I'm so glad you're here.
It seems like we want to raise money, but how many of us really spend our money here in Layout Valley? How many go out and eat in San Antonio or Bernie or Helotes? We really need to try and spend our money here. Now, we do have the project on Bandera coming. A lot of money is going to be lost there because people are going to choose to go outside and not mess with the product. So we need to be careful how we spend our money. So if we need to save now, we need to save and prepare for that Bandera Road.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Okay, anyone else on the budget? Go ahead, Mr. Ryan.
You know, I agree, council makes the decisions here, not staff. But I think council needs to look at that $7 million in savings, not the emergency funds, not the other emergency funds. And look at how can we spend that money for police, street, and all the other restricted issues so that we can use that money instead of new tax dollars. There's no reason to have $7 million in savings.
So, I mean, so everybody's entitled to, again, your own opinion, your own financial philosophy. I don't go to the council and say, this is the way you should do it. I provide the council options. I give them that whole capital of 27 that you see here. Every year, the council goes and debates those items. So, for those of you, we're getting the merry-go-round this year, right? It has been on your capital list, Mayor, for how many years?
4 or 5.
4 or 5 years. So, they kept moving it and moving it. I didn't keep moving that merry-go-round over and over. The council did. It's my job to show them, hey, this is what we're saying we need as far as infrastructure goes, and then they redline it. They tell us how to spend that money. And so yes, I'm up here, I'm the one giving the presentation, and I'm the one, that does all the stuff up here. But we present it to council, and I say, okay guys, redline it. And we moved the merry-go-round, the fire department needed a benefit. That got moved 3 times and finally got bought last year. And so again, that list that you see, the council never spends all of that money all at once. They don't. They go through it and say, this is what we need now. You'll see like painting of the city hall. That's been on for Melinda's list for 2 years. It has to live there because at some point you're going to have to do it. But you may not do it next year. And so it gets pushed off. And so, again, you take a look at that $7 million. If council says we only want to keep $5 million there, let's go ahead and paint City Hall and pay for playscapes or do whatever it is, do the erosion project in the park. Whatever they decide that they want to use that money on, they can certainly do that. And so again, it's important to know it's my job to show them these are your current expenses and these are your upcoming expenses. And they can choose not to do those upcoming expenses. They can choose to continue to move that money over. They can say, hey Crystal, we really want to your crime control, it's their decision to do that, we can certainly do that, but it's also important for me to explain to them, you'll be able to do that for 2 to 3 years at the most. And so as long as they know that, as long as I've provided that information, and if they still make that decision, it's ultimately their decision that they have to live with, right? So again, and we share all that. I always give, this is what you do. If you spend all your money, this is what you do. You spend a little bit of money. We had the conversation on the firefighters, big hot topic of conversation. I told them, you can do all 3 now, you can do none now. You can do 1 each year, and this is how much it was going to cost. I gave them 3 or 4 different options in order to accomplish the goal of adding 3 firefighters to the fire department. I never said, let's go, add the firefighters now, increase your property tax, because we need them now. Never once did that come out of my mouth. And so, it's my job to provide those options, and that's what we did. And the council still ultimately chose to raise the taxes to add those firefighters.
Just a quick response to that.
Use the little microphone. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And Crystal, no disrespect meant, but is it not true that when, back in the fall, when the state was considering new legislation to limit municipalities' ability to raise taxes or to cap that at a certain point, that you brought that to the council?
Absolutely.
And I think speaking to some elected officials, and not just one, multiple, they feel that was a bit of a scare tactic. And some of them regret give me a second, they regret the magnitude that had on the amount that rate was changed to, which was insane, if you ask me. The other thing I would say is, I didn't come up here suggesting that people over 65 don't share a burden of that. What they don't necessarily share a burden is in the increases from here on out. So that's my point. My parents are in their late 70s, and they lived in Leon Valley for over 50 years. So they understand, but I've spoken to many people over 65 that it gives them pause. Their kids decided to return and live in Leon Valley, they'd be affected by this. So I think we need to be thoughtful of that as well. But thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So, as far as what he's referring to as legislation, every 2 years the state goes into legislative session and they mill over different legislative initiatives. And what came up was it looked like at one point it was going to pass where the state was going to cap how much cities could go up in their property tax. And so, as your state manager, I watched over 384 bills last year. And I was presenting different bills to the council in their weekly report, including that bill. Some of the council members got worried about that cap and asked me during the budget process what was going on with that bill. I did bring it to the council, as I did all 300 bills. The mayor, the council can attest to this. I sent them emails on all the bills that come out. We go to legislative updates, and that bill did come up, absolutely. And it's my job as a manager to say, hey, this could impact your budget in the future. Again, I told them, if you go back and watch that meeting, I don't know if it's gonna pass. We don't know what's gonna happen. So I didn't know whether or not that was gonna go through or not. And so a couple of the council members did get a little bit nervous, and they wanted to add the firefighters, and they certainly did that. But during that presentation, if you go back and watch it, I said, you don't have to add them now, you can do it over a space of time, you don't have to do it at all. The staff wasn't requesting that. Or you could not do it all, you can do it over time, you can do them all if you want to. You could do 2 now, 1 later. So we gave them different variations if they wanted to do it. The law did not pass before the vote was even taken on that increase, and the council still chose to do that increase. Again, I don't have a vote on the council. I gave them a multitude of options to be able to do that. But it is my job as city manager to prepare them for upcoming bills. Did you know that every time the fire department goes on call, and the call, no matter what it is, if it's a minor under the age of 17, right? It's not a city of Leon Valley rule, state rule. They could slam their head into a wall. Did you know police have to go out and respond no matter what? Has nothing to do with police. Did you know that they have to go out no matter what? That is not a city of Leon Valley rule, that is a state rule. And so think about how much that impacts your police department every time you get a minor that calls. And so when you talk about unfunded state mandates, unfunded federal mandates, we reap the repercussions of all of those. And so, but it is my job as your administrator to make sure that I let you know, hey, these bills are coming up, and a lot of them did pass. But some of them that may not pass, I probably would assume that probably that cap is coming back, right? They want to regulate cities' ability to increase taxes, and it's probably going to come back at some point, right? And so we will probably see that next legislative session. But it's my job to keep abreast of that and inform your legislative officials that these bills could be coming, so.
Okay. Anything else? Yeah, it was just, anyway, we won't go back because it's already done. But it was a very, yes, that legislative law definitely did impact the council and the decision. But it was just at the very, very end of the budget process. And so,
yes, it is also in my job description that I inform them of all upcoming legislative decisions.
Okay, so is there any other questions before we move on to the Mentimeter? I mean, she's on all the projects that we want you to list. Okay.
All right. So if you have a hard time, you can click on the QR code. You can go to www.mentimeter.com and you're going to push in that code, that 14280931, and it should get you to the presentation. If you need help, just raise your hand. We have some staff that are willing to help you.
Does it need to be started?
Well, I'll get started. I have to click start, but just get there. If you see a little arrow, it'll say get started. All right, so did you see your demographics? Are you seeing demographics on your screen? Yeah, all right. There should be one on your table. I took a picture, there's one on your table. Can I get the code again? Right at the top, it is 14280931. Yeah, it's like these are just demographic questions. I always start with them because it gets those kind of caught up. How old are you? How old are you? Don't worry, what's your age? More politely, what is your age range? What is your age range? Okay. Alright. Are y'all voting? You can continue to vote as I move through the slides. I'm going to go on and move to the next slide. What is your sex? Are you male, female, or you don't want to respond to that? I don't want to offend anybody. So what are your demographics? I do demographics because it gets everybody kind of caught up before we get to the real questions. I just kind of... I should have put on here who was going to win the Super Bowl. Are you a resident of Leon Valley? Do you rent or own your home? And some of y'all may be more comfortable doing this on your computer. Again, it will be online later. What do you love about, what do you love about Leon Valley? You just type in what you love. Your parks, your police, your fire department, your city manager, city council, Poppy's Cafe, the library. What do you love about the city of Leon Valley? Location, safety, walkable. All right. What services can we improve on? right? Can we fix your streets? Can we get better water service? What things can we improve on? Crime, location, the garden club. Ooh, that's a blast from the past. We have a good little community garden. Code enforcement. All right, so now we're going to get to the meat and potatoes. So this was the presentation I gave you earlier. And these were the capital items that weren't in your capital, right? They weren't scheduled. Oh my gosh, what happened? Eric?
Just click send.
What happened? I don't know. Christian, your password.
Did I?
Okay. Prioritize the following: your public works building, your property room, all of the big ones, your library annex, your ADA restroom renovations and parks, hike and bike 3, your erosion project, your natural area, your Crystal Hills parking lot, and then Linkwood this year, it turns out they need a complete street reconstruct, and that's about $1.8 million. Or you can just leave it. Eventually. So, or we need a legislation change on your street maintenance and use some of those dollars for street reconstruct. But if you have members, our friends that live in the leaks, they need complete street reconstruct.
What's wrong with the street?
It's starting to bubble, and so we slurry sealed so much, there's no more curb. And so it's also messing with drainage over there. There's a couple of other areas probably in the city that also probably need some, maybe not the whole street, but sections of the street probably need to be reconstructed. But the leaks is because they, so for those of you that don't know, in order to bypass Bandera Road, there's a lot of neighborhoods that are like this. So the leaks in particular get over 1,000 cars a day going through. We better get around Bandera Road. So they have a lot of through traffic in that particular neighborhood. And so it's caused a lot of damage to their streets.
What is H&B?
Oh, your hike and bike truck? Sorry. Man, sometimes I think I'm pretty good and then I remember they often all the acronyms. It's your hike and bike with section 3. So that would go from Balky, I'm sorry, to Balky Road. So it'll continue from the park all the way to Balky. So right now we're on 2, and we just have that last little segment to go. And you'll be completely connected to the main hike and bike trail system that will get you all the way to like UTSA 1604 area. Okay. All right, so now I just want you to prioritize. It's the same list, but I like to see where things fall when they're amongst other things. And so, property room, library annex, ADA park restrooms, and the public works building. So for those of you that don't know, the library annex lives kind of corner to the park. It's where the friends in the library sell their books monthly. And so they use it as fundraising. Now they have publicly come out to the Leon Valley City Council and said that they are able to find other fundraising solutions. And so it's not a dire need for them, but if we're going to keep it, that building needs to be replaced. And it would be about $300,000. Okay. All right, so now I want you to prioritize this by adding the police department, library annex, the restrooms, public works building, but now I'm going to add the streets to this and kind of see how everything falls when it's just these items. I call it the least up for these kinds of questions only allow me so many characters. And so that's why sometimes you'll see dollar signs, sometimes you won't. Different questions don't allow certain characters, and then it's kind of weird. All right, now let's just look at your hike and bike, your erosion, and the Crystal Hills parking lot, kind of see how those three fall in line. Kind of grouping some. All right, now we're going to prioritize the hike and bike, erosion, Crystal Hills, and the links. So adding the links to this prioritization. There it goes. All right, so if the erosion project would cost $3 million, would you be willing to pay an extra $400,000 to buy a property to save a heritage tree?
You mean the city, not me?
Yes, you. I pay for it. Would you be willing to pay? I'll send you the bill.
You say yes, you get a part of it.
So we know the erosion project is very important, but there's some pretty large trees back there, and so would you be willing to pay an additional $500,000 more to maybe save a few more heritage trees and buy a piece of property? All right. So any project on these lists that you didn't see here that you would like to see? So last year we had a skate park, and out of this kind of conversation and the ones online, the skate park was kind of removed. Dog park, same kind of thing. Dog park was kind of taken out of the last prioritization. So those are two things that kind of were a long time discussion, but after the last town hall, after last surveys, after the park comprehensive master plan conversations, I think the dog park kind of still lived in that, but the skate park definitely kind of had fallen off, so that was kind of removed. Pickleball court, no dog park. Oh, I'd love to do podcast. All right, so Peachtree. So for those of you that have been here a long time, we used to have a pool there at Peachtree and Poss. The pool has been filled in. The city council decided to keep one pool instead of having two due to cost. And so we now have a vacant lot sitting there, right? And so that's what's there. And so now we want to know, what do you want to do with that space? And keep in mind, there are houses abutting. And so we looked at a dog park there. We looked at a pickleball court there, but the residents there, it's too loud for them. They don't want dogs barking. The pickleball court's loud. So we've had some good ideas, like another maybe community garden. However, looking at a community garden, because it looks overgrown even though it's garden, it doesn't look too nice there. So we've got ideas like Zen Garden. And if you've been to Denman Park, you will see like labyrinths and sand and some monuments, and it looks really nice. And it'd be like a little niche this way. So, splash pad. It was a pool, so I don't know if the neighbors have an issue with it being a splash pad.
Can we sell it?
You can always sell it. All right, so after hearing the presentation, do you believe that $7.2 million is too much to have in your reserve fund? So for those of you that heard the presentation, do you believe that it's too much to have in the reserve fund? If yes, then why? Over taxation. Spend it. I would love to spend it. Give it to me. The city does have a lot of needs. I could take down that 7.2 and get public works filled out for you. Taxes are too high. You know, the chart I need to add is what other cities, what other tax rates the city pays. City of San Antonio is pretty close to 0.14. It's not 0.14. If no, then why? So if that 7.2 isn't enough, why? And so for those of you that are going to fill out the survey at home, just so you know, we do see the IP addresses that come in, and so you only get to vote one time. So if you go home and you, oh, I'm going to catch it, and you get vote here on your phone, and then you get home and you vote on your computer, probably don't catch it. But if I see, I had one last year, had 36 skate parks, so it's from the same IP address. So we count it as one.
So it's a household count?
Well, it comes in the IP. So your phones are on different accounts, so I don't know. So if you use your friend's phone, I mean, if you get really creative, I can't see phone IPs, but
Is that what it meant for a household?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, some people, we have husband and wives that have I have a different point of view than my husband, and so if they threw out our survey, you know, I'd be kind of upset, so. But yes, your phone has a different IP address than your home IP address.
I don't know if it's an option.
All right, so after hearing the presentation, how much do you feel is adequate to save in your reserve funds? 3 million, 5 million, 7 million, 9 million, 11 million?
Do the colors represent demographics?
No, they don't. They're just make it look pretty. I like colors. Well, if you look at my annual report, somebody called it out earlier. My annual report is supposed to be online. It's flipped. We don't mail it out. It's supposed to be color oriented. It's not supposed to be really kind of presented in black and white. But we printed them out to you today. But we don't waste money on. I don't even have a big color printer at City Hall, and so we print them in black and white. So they are hard to read. So I encourage you to go online and get the true intent as far as presentation goes. And so we like things to be easy on the eyes. Okay. What are your thoughts on the city's reserve? On the city's reserve fund, and just in general, what do you think about it? You know, I am the one giving the presentation, so a lot of times we get residents that say, city manager's pushing you one way or the other, and really try not. So I hope I did a good job of trying to stay as neutral as I can. And it is kind of sometimes a boring topic, right? So I'm trying to make it through 45 slides, so. All right, okay, Mayor, this is good. Sorry. So the mayor's gonna move on to the next item here shortly, unless anybody has any other questions.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it, no problem. Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you, Dr. Cardara. Let's give her a round of applause. Good information to go on. And it will just make it a little bit more challenging for the council to make those decisions. All right, so the next agenda is agenda item 2F, brainstorming cost-effective ways to celebrate July 4th, the 250th anniversary of the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. Okay, so we're not going to have the big wing day this year due to financial concerns. Again, it says cost-effective ways, so we don't have anything budgeted for this celebration. So what are some ideas? And I don't know how we have a chart out there, so put ideas in, or I'll just do it. Yeah. Anyway, I know the one thing that we do know that's going to be part of the July 4th is the Leon Valley Historical Society Fun Run. They're going to have it again this coming year on July 4th, and that's at 7:30. And I believe we changed it to the new pad, the new running pad over by Shallow Mist. So that's something that we do know is going to happen. So any ideas? Oh, hi Heather, how are you? Good to see you. Yeah, so tell me what your idea, yes, please, and then I'll.
Over there, I have, so they can put it on the slide. Oh, great. So they're on the menu.
Oh, they're, okay, good, you can just put it on the menu.
Yes. So you don't have to take it.
Okay.
I was just gonna, Heather.
Yes, thank you.
Here's okay. I was just gonna suggest maybe you could go over what some of the big expenses that we spent on the 4th of July celebration in the past are, so we have an idea of what the most expensive stuff is versus the
Yes, I have it. Next slide. Okay, I got it. All right, guys. So 4th of July. So let's take a look at how much we spent last year on the 4th. And so Crystal Miranda did an excellent job, right? She was able to get a lot of sponsorships. So 4th of July only cost you $84,000 last year, but we budgeted about $880,000. $180,000. Sorry, dear Lord. It's okay, guys. Sorry. $180,000. $180,000, and these are all her sponsorships on the side. But the big thing that we pay for is your entertainment and your fireworks. Those kinds of things are what our big ticket dollar amounts. And so you'll see things, I know it's kind of hard to read, but you'll see like your entertainment was $28,000. It's your fireworks and your entertainment. The big thing to note there is like even if you say, oh, I just want to do the fireworks piece. Well, the fireworks piece has a lot of things kind of tied to that. We have to keep at least an extra fire shift over. They have to watch all the hot spots in the natural area. So it's a lot of personnel costs. You can't just say you're going to hold fireworks and not have police protection in the park. So you're also going to have police available on that day as well. And so this is just taking a look at your 4th of July. And this is why the council said, remember, we only had $3,000 left over this year. So we didn't have an additional $180,000. Now you could have taken some money from your economic development reserve fund if you wanted to, and pay for a one-time $180,000 event this year for the 250th, but the council still decided that they didn't want to do that. And so this is where the budget was for last year. Now, the other question I get asked an awful lot is, why don't we have an event coordinator and event planner? But first off, let's talk a little bit about some of the options. We had some ideas, kind of hard to read, sorry about that guys, it looked better on my home computer, but option 1 was to celebrate by holding opening ceremonies for the 5K run. So the 5K is still happening with the Leon Valley Historical Society, so we could do a little bit of a shindig with that. You can bring out the flag, national anthem, do the big, for those of you who've seen the big fire department flag. Option 2 would be like asking schools to participate in an essay, maybe giving a prize, or like citywide decoration contests. So these wouldn't impact your budget at all. They would just be contests and stuff that we would hold to kind of commemorate the 250th day. So the big thing I get asked, why not an event planner, right? City of San Antonio generates $300 million in Fiesta, Jazz Fest, all of the things. And so why is it that we can't generate money? Well, the council doesn't want to gate the park. Those monies, like today is the coffee. We missed a lot of our residents because they're at the coffee event. Well, it's $25 to get into that event, right? So we don't charge anybody to come to the 4th of July. It's just open to the public. The vendors, if we charge the vendors more to come in, we can't allow people to bring in food or drinks. And so without having a gated facility, we can't prevent people from coming in with food or drinks. There's too many access and entry points to the park. And so every time we've gone out for an event planner for this particular event, these are the questions that get asked. Can we limit food and drinks? Can we charge at the door? The cities can take a percentage of the proceeds from the vendor sales so that it becomes ticket-based only. And so these are the questions that get asked. And so there's a lot of changes that would have to be done to the park in order for this to be turned over to an event planner. We've tried in the past, we've tried 3 or 4 different times with different event planners, and it hasn't worked out. And some of the big reasons it hasn't worked out is because it still requires city staff. They still need the fire department there, they still need the police department there, and then they have to coordinate the entries and exits. And then if it's raining, we have some flood control issues that we have to worry about as well. And so what option do you prefer? Do you prefer option 1, opening ceremonies, an essay contest, decoration contest? Don't worry, you'll get to put your own ideas here in just a second. I've been told this isn't creative at all. So, sorry about it. But these are really almost at no cost to the city if we did them next year. And it's going, it should be. Hit a refresh on your head. Try to hit refresh.
Why not have all of them, Crystal? Why are they exclusive of each other?
We could do all 3. I should have had it all. You should have been at home last night when I was putting this together. A week ago I was putting this together. I can't. Oh, just hit refresh. Just hit the circle at the bottom here. Mr. Campos, touch on that. What other ideas do you have? Do you have any other cost-effective ideas that wouldn't cost us too much for next year? And so just remember, like with the parade, we need a lot of street closures, public works help, police department help, and so it's still not cheap. Fireworks, I do think we could get some fireworks on time. I know some residents have reached out to vendors about fireworks. But again, I would have to have extra police and fire personnel for that day. So again, it's one of those things that is not necessarily.
So when you're getting, citizens are getting quotes for like fireworks, they probably don't have the right insurance information that you need, and so it may cost more than what that.
Right. So we do have residents reaching out, trying to get costs for fireworks to prove me wrong, right? So, but the other costs that kind of get associated with that are your police personnel, your fire department personnel, even public works. Public works have to set up the barricades, the gates. It is 4th of July, it's a federal holiday, so it is time and a half. So the day itself on personnel is not cheap. We also have different insurance requirements for fireworks. So we have to make sure that we're mindful of our insurance purposes for that as well. And so we see poster contests, I see fireworks and parade, barbecue, picnic. And that concludes the 4th of July presentation.
I had a question.
Sure.
Because there's so many different ideas, and they're great ideas. Would anybody want to volunteer for a small committee and come with a recommendation to the council? Just an idea. So, yes, Councilor Bradshaw. I mean, it's just.
So I was on the council when this decision was made to cancel the 4th of July, and I just want to say it's embarrassing that it's the 250th anniversary of our country, and Leon Valley is known for this every year, having the big shindig, people come from all around, and we decide to cancel it because we don't have any money, right? We don't have any money, can't afford it. But we just raised our taxes to the highest they've been raised in 20 years, the highest rate increase in 20 years, and we don't have any money, and we just showed we have $7 million in reserves, and this is gonna cost us $84,000, right? Maybe $100,000, $120,000, whatever. Who cares? It's the 250th anniversary of our country. It's embarrassing that this council decided, oh, we gotta cancel the 4th of July this year, and I think you should have an emergency meeting and rescind that decision and start planning now and start getting sponsors and make it happen. Because I'm ashamed to say that I live in Leon Valley and we got a bunch of cowards that can't pull this off after we do it year after year after year. And we know how to do it, and it's really shameful. Because everybody's got to go to Helotes, they have to go somewhere else to enjoy the 4th of July.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Michelle Wanzo.
Hi, Michelle.
I want to second what Mr. Bradshaw said. The city isn't just money, the city is culture, it's people, it's community. That's what many of us like to come here for, to live here. And that is enriching to our lives, and it's worth more than $180,000. And I agree with Mr. Bradshaw.
Yes, Mr. Martinez.
We've been talking about taxes and giving more and more to the city. To me, the 4th of July is getting something back from the city. We all need this celebration, especially for the 250th anniversary of our country.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Well, we haven't finalized the agenda for the 17th, so maybe we'll put it on for that discussion. I don't know if the council, y'all.
That's fine. Give me some feedback, but
Again, so one of those things, we can put it on, we start planning for the 4th of July when the last 4th of July ends. And so there's certain things we definitely can do, get accomplished. And so it's just a matter of whether or not we'd be able to land the same sponsorships. We've already Earthwise started using the 4th of July sponsorship dollars. And so,
but we haven't been too successful. We have, I think, 2, right?
But in that email, I did say we weren't having one, so if they wanted to sponsor the Earthwise event, that was the sponsorship we requested.
so so that way we're completely clear on what we've been doing with those sponsorship dollars. So, but we can certainly put it on for the 17th.
But we could pare it down. Could we pare it down?
So once you start having the full day, once you require police and fire presence, the majority of it is staffing, right? Your staffing levels. I'm not saying that you shouldn't spend, we said we could take it from, you could do a budget adjustment and take the $180,000 for your economic community development fund. But if you're gonna have it as an ongoing operating expense, you should be able to support it with your operating revenue that's coming in. So however that is. But for this year, it's not in your budget, you would have to do a budget adjustment.
Okay. Does that sound like a reasonable, put it on for discussion, and then we can go from there? And then maybe out of that, we can, if we need a committee, we can't do it, or whatever.
Well, committee would take too long.
Suggestions.
Oh, look at the other suggestions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'll look at the other suggestions. The thing about a committee is it takes, Earthwise, we need stuff from them and we're already on the end hour. 4th of July can't be handled the same way, the event's too large. So if you're planning a larger event with a committee, now maybe next year you could do it and they plan for the full year, but for 4 months or 5 months to get it going to book stuff, it takes too long.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of the big one, I meant just the small one. That was fine. Okay, all right, sounds good.
All right, our last, this is 20 minutes till 12, we're way ahead of schedule. We have citizens be heard, and if I could ask my counselors, my colleagues on the committee, city council, please come forward and just bring a chair and sit and listen to any citizens to be heard. If you have any concerns, questions, comments that we haven't discussed today, it's something that's not on the agenda, we'd love to hear from you. So if you would please come forward and we'll make a note. Last year we had a whole lot of citizens to be heard. So, Glenda, you have a citizens to be heard. There we go.
This happened some time ago, and so the problem may have been resolved. But on Bandera, the light at Bandera and Heatner, I was stuck there in the left-hand lane to turn, right where, Whataburger is and everything. And I was there for 20 minutes, the light didn't change for that, And a couple of weeks later, a friend of mine was coming to see me and was stuck at that same light. And it could have caused a terrible accident because people were trying to get around people. I was the first one in line, right at the light. But it was 20 minutes before that light changed where I could turn. And
Is that coming on Bandera Road south?
I was on Bandera going like from 14 to 1604.
Oh,
and we turned to the left. I couldn't turn left. The traffic was coming. The light allowed some people to come. And some people coming from that direction, some people crossing. But nobody in my lane next to me could go at all. So we couldn't go forward, we couldn't turn. And like I say, a few weeks later, a friend of mine was coming from the opposite direction to visit me and got stuck there also. So is there a number you can call when that happens, or?
Oh, okay, yes, here.
That did happen to me as well several months back.
Right.
And I did call TxDOT, I did talk to the city manager, and I don't believe that on those lines, TxDOT does.
It's a state highway.
TxDOT does. And I did make a call, and it worked for me for after a while. I didn't know that it was not working again. I can make another call for you.
Well, this was several months ago.
Okay, mine happened a couple of months ago, several months ago as well. And,
Call TxDOT, if that.
yeah, and I can make that call again.
Okay. What's the number?
Or call Public Works.
You can contact us at Public Works, and we have that TxDOT actually has a online system, but we also have contacts there, and we'll take care of it. We get quite a few complaints from on the lights, and so with the traffic lights on Bandera Road, they're actually controlled by the city of San Antonio, but we'll get it taken care of.
Okay, so I just call Public Works.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any light problems, call Public Works. Thank you, Mr. Bellmore, I do appreciate it. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Shaw.
I'm gonna let you go first.
Oh, John, okay, John, John Boyd.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your service. I've been watching the City Council agenda, and I've seen a reference to it today in Crystal's presentation. It appears that there could be an opportunity to add some acreage to Rimkus Park. And I think that would be an incredible investment in the livability and future quality of life for our wonderful city. I was a little surprised that there was only sort of like a 50-50 response on the Mentimeter, that might be a good idea, but just had to throw my opinion on here. I think that's an awesome opportunity that I sure would hate to see us miss. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Bradshaw.
So this is on behalf of my neighbors, because I wasn't there, but a few weeks ago, I guess, there was a gas leak at Marshall High School. They shut down Everett Road. All the traffic, all the parents were coming in and picking up their kids, and they were driving through Mountain Road Bliss Park and parking in yards and everything. And so the question, my neighbors is where this Valley Police during all this. So I missed it. Like I said, I was working and I stayed late. By the time I got home, it was all cleared up. But I kind of said they're probably doing better things. But.
No, they were all there.
Chief, do you want to address that? Did you get?
All of the young police officers working that day were there.
Were there?
As well as our county constables. Precinct 2 were there, and San Antonio Police Department officers that were off the Baker Fire. So all of us were there.
On the fire side of it? Or on the
including all the on-duty firefighters were at the scene as well.
So everybody was there.
Gas leak with, piping over kids? Yes.
He was also there.
Okay.
In the neighborhood.
In the neighborhood.
They were at the school. I'm there at the school.
Okay, at least they took care of it and there was not a.
Nobody got hurt.
Yeah, I got hurt, so that was good. Keep it safe. All right, anyone else? Tiffany? Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Is it the little one?
Okay, we need to, yeah, right.
So I am coming forward to you guys today to first introduce myself. I don't know if people know me. I'm new. Me and my husband just purchased a home in the Center community in September, so we're fairly new. But since I've gotten here, I'm very active. I'm originally from Wisconsin, and I've been very active with my local government. And seeing that we're homeowners now, I have a vested interest in Leon Valley, and I think this community is small enough to get something started, yet big enough to make an impact, just like what was done with Earthwise. You know, you guys take initiative on projects and, you know, the community supports it. So one big thing that is coming up that I've personally been working on and that I've also brought to City Council attention is AI, okay? So AI is coming, right? So I'm bringing awareness to the community. It's not affecting some people, it's going to affect everybody, right? So I have been doing workshops. I do workshops in Leon Valley Library. There's another one coming up on the 28th. I have a podcast. I'm trying to get awareness in people's word and how is AI impacting their life, education, and the workforce, because it's happening. So there's a huge grant that's available, and I really want to help support our library, help support our city. And so that topic is expected to be scheduled on the City Council on February 17th at our meeting. So I'm just giving a public invitation. I really want people to come to the meeting. I really want to raise awareness about AI because it's going to impact everything. I'm not just, crying wolf. If you have looked at anything, when you talk to Siri and tell Siri to play you a song, that's AI. It's happening. And the older community and we have 15-year-old millionaires on here, and we have seniors that don't even touch their computer. So how are we going to bring this together? How is that going to happen? And I think Leon Valley is the place to do it. I want to make this an AI-ready city, right? That's an initiative that's going on in cities nationwide. It is happening, guys. So even if you don't touch AI, you will. So even if you don't want to, come learn about it, right? Make your voice heard. Hear about it. Learn about it. So that's it. That's all I want.
Thank you so much.
Stephanie?
I appreciate it. You're very passionate about it.
Tiffany, sorry. And when is this, the 28th, at what time and where?
February 28th at Leon Valley Library from 1:30 to 3 or 1 to 2:30, depends on how the time goes.
Yeah,
definitely by 1, definitely done by 3.
All right, well, thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
All right, yes, Marianne Christian. So how are you? Good to see you again, and thank you. And what is on your mind?
I'm coming here as president of the Friends of the Leon Valley Public Library. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We are very sad because the annex is probably going to go away. And we were hoping that there would be a little bit more support for a new building, because we do raise funds for the library. We raise in order to support their programs, their furniture and fixture needs, anything that they need that is not covered by the city budget. But anyhow, we're having a pop-up book sale right now over at the library from 11 to 3, and I'm inviting you to come over and just see the kind of books that we have. The books that we collect are withdrawn books, donations from the community, and it prevents those books from being thrown in the trash can or just being thrown in the recycle bins. So come on over. It's today. It's going on right now. And when this is over, stop on by and see what we have.
Okay, thank you so much. I do appreciate that. All right. Anyone else? Have a concern, question? Okay. Yes. Good morning and welcome. If you'll state your name.
Good morning, my name is Melanie.
I'm sorry?
My name is Melanie.
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 Okay, couldn't hear that.
Okay. So, I live in Seneca Estates.
Okay.
And in Seneca Plaza, the appearance of the signage is broken. It's been broken for quite a while, and it's where it states the name of the plaza, Seneca Plaza. And it looks unsightly when you're driving into Leon Valley. It gives the appearance that Leon Valley does not care of the way that it looks when you're driving through. And if we're trying to generate more revenue, to have people stay and shop around and eat, you're not gonna wanna stay where a place looks unsightly. I'm just gonna continue to drive through. So that does need to go ahead and be corrected. Also, in comparison, look at it from across the street on Seneca Way and Bandera. There's the other building, the other plaza that's not a plaza, but it's a shopping center. It's Bandera Crossing Shopping Center, and that was very well kept. And it's a place that I would actually go. There's actually a very nice little Cuban shop there that sells good Cuban sandwiches. So I definitely shop there also. The other thing is that when San Antonio Food Bank comes into Seneca Plaza, aside from the traffic that is caused by that, they also leave their wooden pallets there at Seneca Plaza, another unsightly view and display of our city. So I believe that has to be picked up by them as well. I don't know why it's being left there. And then also, the other thing is that the traffic at Seneca and Bandera, right where QT's at the light, there's, this past week there's been like 2 large accidents that have happened there. And there could have been another third one. My brother was coming home from 410 off of the bridge, and he was trying to turn onto Seneca, and right where QT's at, and some young gentlemen in a car were on the other lane, which is the lane for you to go ahead and travel into the neighborhood, blocking, and would not move. You know, he had to stop to go ahead and try to make his way through. And it was a bunch of kids in the car just laughing. They thought it was hilarious. There was more people behind him trying to go through. I mean, there's no way to go ahead and report that right away, to call our police officers to let them know. But it is something, and I think maybe a way to help avoid some of the turns that happen, or even going across from Seneca to Seneca Estates 2, I believe, is that maybe we could have a light control to where it has a turning light there, because it's just one light where you can go across or you can turn onto Bandera. And so something needs to happen there to go ahead and help traffic, move along the way that it needs to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for bringing those to our attention. We'll certainly look at those. Okay, thank you. All right. Anyone else? All right. Well, my gosh, it's before 12 o'clock. Oh, here comes Sherry. All right. One more comment or an additional comment. We don't want to cut anyone off that would like to say something. Yes, ma'am.
This is
the third year I brought this up, but I'm a tree person, and my bone of contention is all the dead trees that are on Evers Road that are not very noticeable this time of year because everything is defoliated, but during the growing season, they're huge, huge trees that are dead. And nothing's been done about it. They've been that way for years. It's very, talking to this other lady, when you were bringing up the subject of sightliness in Leon Valley, they are a real, real eyesore. And I know it's very expensive to get trees removed. I've had a couple of them that I've had to take down myself. Very expensive. So we need to work on that, figure out a way to either help people somehow, get the financing to remove those trees, but it's an oak wilt virus that spreads, and it's going to spread all over Leon Valley. And I don't think we really wanted to do that. So if...
Well, Sherry, the good news is that we are addressing that. We have addressed it, and we do have a dead tree ordinance now that we didn't have prior, and the council was just provided all of the dead trees in right-of-ways and on the personal property, and then the cost of removal. So we have gone at least that far of identifying.
Well, hallelujah.
Thank you. So, I mean, you know, so we did hear what you had to say. It just takes time, but we are working on it, and now the council has to decide, you know, the next step, but that was just the first step in identifying.
Please, thank you very much.
But you're right, the oak wilt is not, it's spreading, so we have to try to stop that. Thank you so much, really appreciate it. Anyone else? Do any of my colleagues have anything they'd like to say before we close?
No, thank you for your input. I know that you guys had a lot of things to do this Saturday. You could have done something else, but thank you so much for coming here, giving us your opinion, good, bad, or but one of the things that was brought up was the 4th of July, and we'd be more than glad to address this. So when we do bring it up, please do come. When we addressed it the first time, I had multiple people telling me they don't want it. Now I get a lot of people saying they do want it. We do listen to you, despite of what people may think that we don't. We do. Come by and talk to us. We don't have any problems changing our mind to try to make things happen in Leon Valley, but we definitely need your input. And thank you so much for coming in.
So that'll be on the February 17th City Council meeting, a week from this coming Tuesday. And we start at 6 o'clock with the executive session, but the regular council meeting starts at 6:30. So we'll put that on as close to the beginning so that you can come and give your opinion to the council. Okay? Thank you.
I just wanted to also thank y'all for coming out this Saturday morning. You did give us some direction. You helped set some priorities for us. We did hear you about the 4th of July. We're certainly going to consider that and make a decision as we go forward on the next council meeting. So thank you for all of your input. It is important.
I don't want to put anybody on the spot. Okay.
We appreciate seeing everybody here and seeing all the faces and people that we haven't seen for a while. So thank you for coming out. We do appreciate it, and we do appreciate your opinion. And we would love to have some of those meetings. We like to hear what you have to say, and it makes a difference. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. All right. Well, listen, I can't believe it. It's going to be about 12 o'clock. And again, on behalf of the City Council, I want to again thank the staff for their presentation, but more importantly, thank you for taking your time. You could have been someplace else this morning, so thank you so much for being here and caring about your city and giving us your input. We really appreciate it. So without further ado, if there's no objection, we move to adjourn the 16th Annual Town Hall meeting at noon on Saturday, February 7th, 2026. Thank you all so much. We hope to see you at the City Council. Thank you.